Yeah. It should be working now. Pardon me, guys. I'm just waiting for the all clear from the other person. Sorry about that. There's actually like 5 more places I've got to like hit the button. So it's a little annoying.
You're good now.
All right, good. All right, I'm getting the good. It's good. It's good. It's not you guys, it's me. I didn't press the correct button. On my
It took a long time for my device to catch up.
Yeah, I apologize, guys. I know. No, it was just, so what happens is there's like 3 different things that I got to have configured right, and I had 2 of them right, and I missed one. So it took 2 clicks to fix. So anyway, good evening, everybody. I apologize for the, of course, rocky start, which seems to be the norm lately. Anyway, what I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted by a non-working microphone, was that I do apologize to everyone. I have been doing this more of in a lackadaisical fashion lately because, quite honestly, I'm not really treating this as a profession lately. This is just a hobby right now for me. You know, I don't have the time. I've been working regular work, a day job, and I did that for a couple reasons. I like having a part-time job somewhere, because the ADHD thing that I got, that, you know, it's like now part of my personality, because I figured out that that's, you know, a big reason why I've gone through certain things growing up. So I'm acknowledging it, but knowing that, I realize, hey, that's why I like working part-time jobs. Give me like 2 or 3 part-time jobs, and I'm fine. I can't stand working the same job 5, 6, 7 days a week. I can't stand that shit. I can't stand long hours. I can't stand all that noise. So it is nice to have a part-time job, and it's a regular job. I work for the family nursery, and it gives me a chance to basically be a normal person. Like, you know, and right after a traumatic experience, sometimes one of the best things you can do is to just, you know, do your taxes or something. I shouldn't say taxes. That's stressful as shit. But do something normal, right? Like, just have normal stuff, like really normal stuff, as normal as you can get it. You know, eustress is what they would call it. Not, you know, distress, not the bad kind of stress, but the eustress, the good kind of stress. Do stuff that gives you the good stress. It helps get you out of that, you know, sinkhole of just, even if you're good at this, like I am, you can still get those cyclic thoughts. You can still get, you know, moments where you're like, fuck, you know, you think about stuff. And you shouldn't resist that. The thoughts have to be allowed to come. But at the same time, they can be overwhelming, and you need to be able to find a way to tune them out or do something else when it's getting to be too much. So having a regular job helps, you know, it helps a lot. Anyway, every day is a little bit better, and sooner or later I will stop talking about this nonsense, but it's obviously had an impact. So I decided, with everything going on, I'm just going to do this as a hobby for the time being, every Thursday, like I always do. Just have some fun talking to you guys. You know, just that kind of stuff. So let's see who's here with us on Rumble. I've got Asian Kid, I've got F Kitty, and I've got Ninurta L Bay 360. Great shadow hours. What's up, DH? Sound there now? Yeah, I think you're saying the sound was working. And then we got Joffrey says, my grocery job has been very taxing on the body. I get it. Working at a nursery, that's probably the most physical job I've ever had. And I worked in stock rooms. I've worked all kinds of things. I've worked, I don't know if I could say dirty. Well, I've worked dirtier jobs if you count like working in food prep. That I consider that pretty fucking dirty. But working at a tree and shrub nursery, it's just like, it's like blue collar dirty. It's like different. You know, it's like farming or construction or something. So, you know, it gets you outside, which can be good, but it's also, it's a dangerous job. It's a physical job. It can be a stressful job if it's the busy season. So yeah. We also have Kelly Meadows in, oh wait, no, I'm getting things mixed up here. I've been shouting people out on Rumble, but you guys are not in Rumble. You guys are, who's my Rumble people? Hold on. It's not telling me. Anyway, I got 5 people in Rumble, the rest of you on YouTube. That's fine. Let's say hi to the rest of the crowd. We've got, let's see, Salty K, Lowland Asin. What's up, brother? I haven't seen you. Well, I saw you last week, I guess. Safi K. Hello, Safi K. And Kelly Meadows says, I work full time mostly for the medical benefits. Good evening. I will watch this after work. I got you. I got you. Twisted Jack says, been a bit. Hope it's been well. I've been doing this stuff at sporadic times. That's kind of what I was getting at, Twisted Jack. And I apologize to everybody who was counting on my like regular streams the way I used to do them. It's sooner or later I'll go back to a more normal pattern. But, you know, all I can say is like after a traumatic experience, like you kind of regress to what you know. You kind of regress to your default state of psychological balance, like before, you know, you learned how to make yourself maybe healthier, you know, so you can kind of revert to certain things. I've definitely gotten like a little bit more scatterbrained. I think a lot of that is just I just don't have it in me. I just don't care. You know, I figure it's like you get things put in perspective when you go through what was going on with me. And it's like, even if you're not wrapped up in your ego anymore that much or at all, something like that will still shake you. And I had somebody, you know, not say anything to me, but I had somebody like they had gone through some traumatic stuff, and they're like, you know, I'm supposed to just take this on the chin, right? I'm supposed to just like be stoic about it. And I get it. Like that's being stoic is true stoic. I don't mean the modern interpretation of it, which is often just, you know, be an asshole. I mean, the true interpretation of stoicism. That's true. You should try to be stoic about these things, but being stoic doesn't mean callous. It doesn't mean that it doesn't faze you. You know, a death of a family member, or you get in a car accident, you almost die or something. These are things that, whether you're psychologically integrated or not, they are a huge adjustment and they're traumatizing. They're not a gentle adjustment. It's not like, oh, we're moving to a new city where it's everything that I like there. It's, oh my goodness, something I really care about isn't here anymore. And it was painful to watch it go. So even if there isn't a fuck ton of like egoic attachment going on, even if you're not like, you know, oh, woe is me, like this is happening to me or any of that crap, the adjustment is still powerful. There's so many holes in my life that, you know, there's like a hole in my life, but at the same time, now there's like all this extra room. It's like weird to explain. It's like I don't have certain stressors anymore. And it's like instead of those, I am inventing new stresses for myself, like new things to be paranoid about, new things to worry about. Instead of worrying about, oh, is my mom going to be sick or have a bad night or be in a bad mood and give me an attitude and problems because of her emotional problems and all this crap. Now, instead, I'm sitting here going like, oh no, what's wrong with this? You know, I don't know. Just insert random thing, right? You can get paranoid. You can have all these different things pop up. And that was happening. It still happens a little bit. So that's just me explaining to you, like, I'm still going through it. But I am, every day I feel more myself, and pretty soon I'll be sick and tired of even bringing it up. So that will hopefully be soon. What's up, Kat Jones? She says, hey, stopping in to say hello and good night. Yeah, a lot of people do that lately. They just stop in, say hello, and then they watch again later. I appreciate that, Kat. That's really awesome. I do that too. I like to tune into people and just say hi for a little bit, just to show support and love, and just, you know, hang out for a minute and then go do something else. It's totally fine. So Corvus Keel After Dark, what's up? He says, hello, DH Thorn. What's going on? All right. So tonight, I don't really have a ton on my mind, but that doesn't mean there's nothing on my mind. So I'd sort of like to open it up to you guys to sort of steer what we talk about or what I talk about. But I will tell you, like today, I was watching, interestingly enough, it was a video with Dana Carvey and what's his name? Oh shit. He does, they do videos, they do like live streams together now, like on YouTube. Dana Carvey and what's the other dude? I can't think of his name. Was it Jason Spade? I think it's Jason Spade. And they interviewed Dr. Greer today, or a couple days ago. Maybe it was like a week ago. And I like watching Dr. Greer's stuff. And I do. David Spade. Thank you, honey. I do like Dr. Greer in as much as I can ascertain his legitimacy. That is to say, his sincerity. I don't really trust him. He is a big name dropper. He likes to take credit for a lot of things. And it doesn't mean he doesn't deserve it, but I mean, he likes to make sure you know he's responsible for this, that, and the other thing. And he likes you to know he's connected to these people. And he likes you to know all the work he's done and how important he is. And that's neither here nor there, but I want to address it. I want to make sure it's known. He has some questionable connections. If you guys aren't familiar, Dr. Greer is one of the world's foremost authorities on alien contact, alien disclosure. And as much as he gives me pause because of certain issues, my understanding of the situation before he ever even entered into my conscious awareness, his perspective of the question resonates a lot better with mine than almost anybody else's. His incorporation of consciousness, of psychic stuff, of what could be considered like non-dual metaphysics, but he frames it more in a new age context. His idea of how contact with ETs or aliens or whatever works is my operating understanding as well. So when he talks about this subject, he will tell you that you can contact all kinds of different entities. In fact, he's got in his new disclosure website, I forget what the full name of it is, but if you look up, Dr. Stephen Greer Disclosure Project or whatever, he's got a website. You just got to register for it, and it's got, I think he says like a terabyte of data, like files, maybe more than 1 terabyte of data that you can download. It's all in PDF form. And I went to that website and I what am I turning Australian? I went to that website last night. I went to that website today and I perused it a little bit. It's a little clunky to me to like figure out what I want to see. It's like, and it seems to keep bringing up like the same articles. So I don't know what this terabytes of data thing he's talking about is, but I guess it's in there. Like I said, I only started looking at it. So it's a little like, what am I looking at? It's a work in progress. Obviously, he says that it needs time and labor for people to categorize all the stuff and make it searchable better. Right now, if you use the search thing, it does work, but it may not necessarily work the way you think. Like you'll search for something and it may pop an article up, but it doesn't mention that thing in the article at all. So why it's connected to that search term, I don't know. And then other times it's well connected and it works just fine. Anyway, Dr. Greer, in those documents, he has one specifically that is about his idea of cosmology, like a new cosmology to help us integrate an understanding of how some of these things work and what these entities are. And some of it answered some of my questions in terms of what is his model of reality and how does he plug that into this larger question? Because one of the things that is always sort of stuck in my craw and been one of those things that's been hard for me to balance is the question of the objective reality of, we'll call them ETs, we'll call them UFOs, we'll call them interplanetary beings, whatever the fuck they are, non-human intelligences, whatever you want to call these beings, okay? Even before, when I was a skeptic about them being here, I had no doubt that they existed. I just didn't figure that they were here. I figured this was U.S. government program. Okay, I often said, like, why would they travel all this way just to anal probe us? It makes no sense. And so as I, explored the more, shall we say, up-to-date information, of course it clicks like, oh, okay, this is starting to make better sense again. Now I understand how this could have been going on. So yes, they are here, but they're mostly not. Like, according to Dr. Greer, something like 80% of, maybe 70%, 60, 70, 80% of all UFO sightings and abduction stories are predominantly about the human false flag version, the human fakery, and I don't mean just people trying to cause a hoax and get famous. I mean the, shall we say, deep state faking alien stuff, to use that to create, shall we say, a red herring, a wild goose chase, a false narrative that they can control so that you don't know the truth. And this way they remain in power. So according to him, only about 20% or less of, or maybe a little more, of this kind of contact or whatever is legitimately real. Now, in terms of its aliens, everything else is it's human-made stuff using reverse engineered alien tech and stuff that our ruling class, going back to forever, has known about or had access to or whatever. You have to understand that in the lore, the mythos of modern UFOlogy and conspiracy theory, where that intersects is, for most people, it intersects around the turn of the 19th into the 20th century. Specifically, it gets really hot around the 30s, 40s, 50s, when the Germans were, basically, before even the Nazi Party or anything like that, the Germans were deeply invested into occult research. And of course, in the public eye, they make it sound like just stupid woo quackery nonsense. Ha ha, look at those stupid, racist Nazi people, right? But the reality is way more sophisticated, way more nuanced, and way more legitimate. They literally they were one of the first, if not only, governments at the time to, or organizations bigger, of some substance at the time, to really take a serious look at lost, legends, mythology, occultism, hidden history, and basically what today would be called conspiracy theory and spooky woo occultism. So they dove very deep into that. And of course, being a government with bigger resources, they were able to get places and accomplish things that people like you and I cannot. Even the most talented amongst us, they would pick us up and use us. We're not going to accomplish a lot of this stuff on our own. So they would get psychics and they would get historians, and they would, you had Maria Orsic, you had the Vril Society, you have the Ananerabe Society, you have all these different groups doing the research and exploring the lost sites, looking for Agartha, looking for the subterranean contact, what's down there, giants, reptilians, what's down there. Well, they found out. And the problem here is there's a lot of holes where we don't know what exactly happened. There's a lot of theories. Some people say that Vril is an energy. That's the name of the reptilians. I call bullshit on that, but it remains to be seen. I call bullshit in the speculative sense. I don't know, but I call bullshit on that. Maybe it's true, but they're acting like the Vril were the most evil reptilian bastards ever, and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, there's other groups that say, no, Vril is an energy field that's basically prana or chi or one of those things. And whether they had contact with the reptilians or not remains to be seen as well. One theory says that they did, and this is why they were so evil. Another one says that, no, that's not what happened. That's because the evil ones were with the allies. So here's the deal, guys. We don't know. Not really. We all have our pet theories. We all have our speculations. There's a lot of evidence out there. Something obviously happened. Antarctica's at play. The Germans obviously created UFOs, blah, 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 blah. The real history of humanity is slowly percolating up out of the bullshit deception. The problem is that it's still covered with a lot of the bullshit. It like smeared onto it. So it's still, if you go to grab at it, it's slimy and it'll slip right out of your hands. And one of the things you got to watch out for is becoming dogmatically attached to certain pet theories that you say, well, it has to be that way. And you get dogmatic, you get preachy. You don't get excited and ranty, you get preachy, you get religious. You start like trying to proselytize. You start, trying to assert a specific dogma, a specific ideology of what happened. Nobody was there. We don't know. A lot of people are lying, and the truth that is out there, it's really difficult to discern all the elements that are true from the elements that are not. And so this is where it gets a little tricky for people. And that's a stumbling block for a lot of people. People get dogmatic about it. So we don't know. But going back to Dr. Greer is interesting, but he's also highly suspect because of his connections to, hello kitty, very highly suspect because of his connections to certain elite members of the elite families of the world. Okay, he in the 70s, or was it, no, excuse me, in 90, I think it was 97 actually, not the 70s, in 97 he was buddy with Lewis Rockefeller, right? I think it was Lewis Rockefeller, right? Was it Lewis? Lawrence Rockefeller. He was supposedly buddy with Lawrence Rockefeller, and to his credit, he is very clear about this. He talks about it, maybe not all the time, but he talks about it more recently in that interview with David Spade and Dana Carvey, sorry, and the other guy. And he brings this up, and it's also in this website's documentation. So he's got in this disclosure project, he's got the image of him with, Lawrence Rockefeller. But the problem is, he says he's nonpartisan. I believe that. At least that's how he presents himself, and he does a good job of maintaining that presentation. He, interestingly enough, appears, shall we say, confident just by his actions that it's going to be Trump is going to be ruling America soon, blah, 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 blah. And he's angling his work to appeal to him and his audience. So a lot of his work now is starting, like he put out a comic book, which I bought, like it was only $5 or whatever. I bought this comic book. It's garbage. It's like one of the worst comics I've ever seen. It's like something that, like, it's got okay artwork, but the story is just so cringe. It's really cringe. But it's interesting because, it shows Donald Trump being almost subordinate to Dr. Greer. And Dr. Greer is like showing, Donald Trump, you have to understand the deep state isn't just political. They have alien this and that, and we've got to go save the planet. It's so fucking Power Rangers corny. It's so bad. But it's interesting to see what he and his crew seem to think is going to happen. It's interesting to put all this, it's another data point. You have this disclosure guy, this guy who's talking all about aliens, who seems to be hopeful and hopeful about the prospect of dealing with him on this subject. It is interesting, and he's anticipating clearly by the way it's almost like he's not saying it, but he's making it clear what's going to happen. It's like he knows, or he suspects, or he's strongly, certain. And to me, that's just another interesting data point. And he's not alone. There are a lot of people. I am noticing, this is something I brought up with a bunch of people actually, but I have brought up with a couple of people in private, which is, if you really do your time, and this person I was speaking about this with isn't here tonight so far, but usually it's B Grade Anyway. So I had an email conversation with B Grade Anyway, where we were talking about how we are seeing all of the alien disclosure, starseed, Pleiadian people, they all seem to be aligning delicately. When I say delicately, I mean it's not like they're stumping for anybody, but they're aligning with this QAnon, Trump, conspiracy circuit. They're more aligned with that. If you go on the internet, you'll see that a lot of the people that are pushing for this disclosure, for star seeds and all these different concepts, a lot of them, maybe the vast majority of them, I'm not saying that they're politically Trump stuff, but I want to make that impression. I'm not trying to say like, oh, look, they're great. Because no, I'm saying notice the patterns is what I'm trying to get at. Notice the data points. A lot of them are either apolitical completely, or they seem to be getting this, like, Trump's the one, like, this is where disclosure is going to come from. This is the, whether you like him or hate him, good or bad, this is how it has to work. It's got to come through. It's going to be through this corridor, because this is the outsider in their mind. This is the outsider who's going to help. Whether you love him or hate him, I'm just telling you what the facts are, what people are seeing and what people are saying. It doesn't mean, I know a lot of you guys are fans of Trump, or are on the MAGA spectrum or something like that. I'm D.H. Thorne. Yes, I will vote for him. Yes, I prefer him, but I'm not a political stump guy. I don't I'm not going to do that. I'm an issue person. I'm a situation person. I'm a, hey, this is happening, what's really going on person. If you think that Trump is the second coming of Jesus or this great hero who's in charge of this great operation, you've swallowed the Kool-Aid. You're a fool. This is all a propaganda network. This is all a propaganda system. He's the front man for a huge operation. Yes, he has a lot of pull. He has a lot of decision making. Yes, yes, yes. But it's not Trump's plan. It's not any of that. He's the spokesperson. He's the front man. He's the figurehead. He's the king. He's the whatever you want to call him. But he's got his cabinet. He's got his advisors, the military. He's got all these things. So whatever you think of him, this is one of the things about politics that people have to get through their head. You're never voting for a person at the top levels. You're voting for a cabinet. You're voting for a collective. You're voting for the advisors. You're voting for their resources even. You know, Trump being a billionaire means he's got resources. He can find out information that you can't just because he's got the money to do it. Same thing with all these people. So you're never really electing a person, assuming the elections are even legitimate, of course. In theory, you're not electing a person, you're electing a brand. Now, is this how it's always been? Probably, but certainly in the last generation or so, certainly since the 80s, 70s, you're not voting for a person, you're voting for a collective, you're voting for a brand. So ignore that part of it. You will notice that that's what I do. I don't really get all worked up, even though I bring them up a lot. I'm not worked up like, oh, Trump is this. You got to vote for Trump. He's the best one. Fuck Trump. He's some dude with a bunch of fucking fake tan spray and a bad hairdo and blah, blah, blah. But if I'm being honest, he is either one of the better, shall we say, sincere actors, or he is legitimately on board with the idea of ascending mankind, of getting mankind into ascension. It does appear that way. Now, I say that cautiously. I actually told a friend of mine recently, I don't fully trust these people. They're authorities, okay? I don't trust authority. I don't care if they want my best interest or not. My first default response to anyone that wants power is to say, why the fuck do you want power? Power corrupts. Power is used to corrupt. Power is used to enslave people. So why do you want this power? Do you want the power? Was it given to you? Were you elected by people? Or is that why you're the front man? So I need to know these things. So I kind of wish that I could spend like a few days just reading him in person, just get his baseline, listen to him in his normal conversation, really feel, when is he lying? When is he telling the truth? When is he being benevolent? When is he being selfish? Blah, 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 blah. Then I'd have a better idea. But maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. You guys tell me, to borrow a Russell Brand thing, maybe I'm wrong. You guys tell me, what do you think? Do you think that any of this is the way it appears? Nah, I don't think any of this is the way it appears. And this is why I am not all about the politics. I'm about the current events. I'm about the, hey, this happened. What do you think? Hey, they're doing this. What do you think of that? What do I think of that? It's not about vote this way or stump this way or feel this way about different political issues. This is why when people get like weird, Thorne got political. No, I haven't gotten political yet. Not once. Have I told you how to vote? I might encourage you. I might say, hey, I'm going to vote for this person, but I'm not a politician. I'm not a political guy. I'm a truth seeker. Right? I'm a truth seeker. I am a freedom fighter, if you will. I'm, that luciferian, libertarian current. I want you to be left alone. I want you to be free. And I want society to be just managed enough that we can have a secure, prosperous society without being told how to live. It's really not that hard. It's kind of how most people are. Most people are already naturally that way. Most people don't want to be told how to live their lives or be telling other people how to live their lives. They want to be left alone within reason. They want to be left alone, and they don't want an authoritarian jackboot telling them what to do. That's the majority of people, whether they know it themselves or not. That is their inner truth, whether they know it or not. They may not have a sophisticated understanding of it. They may stumble into tyranny because they think, hey, it's a good idea to do this, it'll save some lives. Little do they know that it's really designed to strip you of your rights or money or whatever. And so a lot of people are fundamentally good in this way. They're fundamentally wise in this way. They want to have freedom. They're just stupid. They're just dumbed down. Now, what do I mean by stupid? I don't necessarily mean low IQ, although some people would equate them. No, low IQ just means you have a little bit less bandwidth or baudwidth or whatever analogy you want. You just have a little bit less space to process. You don't process as quickly, and you don't maybe make the same intuitive leaps that someone with a higher IQ makes, right? But over a long enough timeline, you can pretty much pull out brilliant shit on a long enough timeline. What makes you stupid, you can have an IQ that dwarfs mine. You can have like a 200 IQ and be completely fucking stupid, because intelligence isn't, I know, yes, in the dictionary, stupidity means low intelligence, but we don't really call someone who is unintelligent stupid. We just look at them and go, well, they don't have the capacity. When we call somebody stupid, we're talking about someone who is willfully stupid, someone experiencing Dunning-Kruger, someone who's arrogant about what they don't know, someone who asserts things based on faulty information. Basically, any kind of dogmatic, closed-minded person, anyone who's been indoctrinated. So whether you have a high intelligence or low, you can still be stupid in my book, because to me, the inverse of stupid is wise. Okay. So when I'm calling people stupid, like as a shtick, right? If I'm going, look at all these stupid idiots out there, I'm not, even if I even use the low IQ thing, I'm really talking about wisdom. They're not wise. And that's what it is. Now, what's wisdom? Well, wisdom, some people say, well, it's life experience. That's experience. That's not, experience will give you wisdom, but wisdom and experience aren't the same thing. Wisdom is closer to intuition. Wisdom is something that transcends intelligence and intuition. It transcends experience. Wisdom is a kind of knowing. It's a kind of, you have aligned your mind, your ego mind, with the absolute in such a way that you are able to receive higher knowledge, higher ideas. You're able to channel, you're able to, so really, and when I say channel, I don't mean a spirit, I mean, you can channel from source, you can channel from the whole, you can channel the wisdom of the absolute itself, which is total wisdom. It's everything. It's all wisdom, right? It's not like you're channeling a specific deity of wisdom. You're channeling the source of wisdom itself. Sophia in the Gnostic terminology or whatever. So you're channeling that. Okay. So what I like about Dr. Greer is that he integrates this stuff with science. He integrates this stuff with the disclosure stuff. And he does I was going to say a really good job, but he does a good job of presenting this stuff in an accessible way. He doesn't make it too complicated. He doesn't try. He does not, like me. He doesn't have I don't think he has a very deep understanding of the metaphysics that he talks about. You know, he's a meditation teacher, but anybody can be a meditation teacher. Meditation teacher is someone reading stories to children in some cases. I've seen people claim, oh, I'm a meditative, coach. And all they do is they do guided meditation where they're just describing a beautiful scene in what you're doing. That's not meditation. I mean, it's a kind of meditation, but that's not meditation. That's not what meditation is fundamentally. When people say, I'm going to go meditate, now before I finish that thought, I'm with Theoria Apophasis on this. I don't think that there's a good definition for the word meditation, but I think what we mean, what everybody recognizes as the word meditation, what the meaning is it's an attainment of a transcendental state, a state whereby you are not just daydreaming or having hypnagogic visions. That's a trance. That's a different thing. So a guided meditation is more of a trance-inducing situation. It's a hypnagogic thing. You're relaxing and you're going into a daydream state, and you're seeing the beautiful field, and you're hearing the wind, and you're smelling the flowers and whatever they're trying to guide you through. And now you see a tree, and it's got something carved into it. Oh, what's there? Don't tell me, but whatever it is, pay attention to it. It's a secret message. You hear all this dumb shit. That's not meditation. That's at best, that's inducing a trance or a hypnagogic state, which is nothing. That's an important skill, but let's call it what it is. People say it doesn't give you the benefits of meditation, that kind of shit. Genuine meditation is, in my book, it's something transcendental. It's something you do to transcend the mind or the ego mind, and then break through into that higher order consciousness, that non-dual realization, the hidden self. Let's stop calling it the higher self. In fact, I'll still do it for a while, but let's stop calling it the higher self. Call it the hidden self. And the reason for that is when you call it the higher self, you're creating a hierarchical relationship of master and slave with it. You're treating that other part of you as somehow more important than you, as if you're supposed to, in other words, the embodied you. You're treating that as if that is some kind of pinnacle and you've got to surrender to it in some kind of a negative way, like a humiliating way. When in fact, it's just another part of your shadow, just not a negative part. It's a positive part of your shadow. It's the part of you that you're not aware of, that isn't the stuff you're ashamed of. It's the part of yourself that comes to the decisions when you're not thinking. It's that part of yourself where if you're trying to figure something out and you go to sleep and you wake up and suddenly you know the answer, it's that part of you. We call it the subconscious. We call it the higher self. I prefer the hidden self, to be brutally honest, because the hidden self makes more sense in the non-dual understanding. My wife's mind is part of the hidden self as well. My mind is part of her hidden self. So let's think of it that way and try to understand what it is like from that numberless perspective, recognizing that there is just existence. The mind is a form it takes, and it is mind. It's not a mind. It's mind, which is then compartmentalized through fundamental ignorance, agnosis, divine attention, being fixated. And when I say split, I don't mean broken apart and separated. I mean split in the, like, two eyes going in two different directions, each one seeing a different thing, and then paying attention to one eye or the other, and being able to do that at the same time, because time itself is an illusion. So what I'm saying is that everybody every person you've ever met is an avatar for the same infinite, numberless existence. It's an avatar for that does not have a singular consciousness nor a multiple consciousness. It is consciousness. It is knowing. No, let's use the word knowing instead of consciousness. The fundamental nature of reality is not consciousness, it's knowing. It's awareness. It is not a process, but it is not a thing, and it is not, it isn't just a concept. It is an active, ever-present knowing. That's the fundamental nature of reality. That is what all things are a form of that knowing. So this can of soda is a form of knowing. It's a form that knowing takes. What does this have to do with Dr. Greer? Pretty cool, because he connects those dots, and he understands, probably because he's into spiritual stuff, probably because he's connected to the families, you know. He knows that the fundamental nature of reality is that which we point at with the word consciousness. It is knowing. It is 0 point. It is equivalent to 0 point. Every single point in space and time, no matter how far in the past, present, future, or how far away in the universe or the multiverse, every single point in space and time, even in higher dimensions, is connected or is a perspective of the exact same non-dual singularity, Brahman. When I say singularity, I don't mean a one, I mean a oneness. I mean a numberless whole. A singularity, we call it a singularity. It's a cool term. It sounds like we mean one thing, but we really mean a point. We're really talking about something that has no dimensionality. It is adimensional. It is non-dimensional. It's non-local. It does not occupy space or time. Rather, all space and time are illusory projections of it unto itself. So it doesn't take up space. It's not this big. It's not this big. It's simply dimensionless. But when I say dimensionless, we have to take care here, because we don't want to imply that this singularity is limited in any way. So if I say it's dimensionless, you go, well, it has no dimensions. Now, wait a minute. That's not what I'm saying. So what the fuck are you saying, Thorn? I'm saying it transcends dimensionality completely. Even the concept of dimensions is within this. In other words, this manifests as dimensions. It is not dimensional. It manifests as dimensions. So what you think of as dimensional or adimensional, non-dimensional, all of that is within this. And this infinite, but not infinite mystery is the source, substance, and receiver of all things. That's the Trinity for you. Dr. Greer, for whatever reason, maybe he's just a New Age weirdo, he incorporates this understanding, and according to him and his documents and all of his disclosure, this isn't spooky woo, this is what the aliens know. And he also is very upfront in saying that he is specifically interested in the alien stuff, the ET stuff, and some of the higher dimensional beings, the non-physical beings. He is interested in that as well, but mostly it's on ETs, their technology, the people, the objective biological ETs. That's his primary focus. He doesn't talk about the spirit world, but he believes in it. He's seen evidence for it in his way. And of course, we know that these black projects in the government, they know about this stuff. They work with this stuff. They obviously do, and they always have. But they work with it in a way that's not this dumb Hollywood spooky woo, you know, bibbity bobbity boo. I'm going to read this thing out of this grimoire and it's going to come to pass. That is fun. It is an effective practice for people that have that mentality, like they like that stuff, but it's not how it works. I've been doing this since I was 12, and I didn't have a grimoire to get me started. I had more success than probably, I'm going to be a dick here for a minute, but I've had more success even when I was 13 without a fucking book to tell me what to do or any teacher. I had more success just following my intuition and just doing things just as they felt than I guarantee the vast majority of you have had with every book available, every tool available, every video I've ever made, why? Am I special? That's not my point. If you're hearing what I'm saying, you're going, Thorne's bragging again. No, what I'm telling you is these grimoires and this magical theory shit that you're all into, that is window dressing for the soul, brother and sisters, and everything in between. It's not what it is. Magic isn't fucking bibbity bobbity boo candles. It's not any of this shit. Sorcery is not any of this shit. Those are training wheels. Those are Dumbo feathers. Those are psychological devices to help the human psyche align itself and contort itself in a way to allow itself to phase into different timelines or manifest what it wants, or in the mundane mind's way of thinking, cause things to happen. It doesn't cause anything to happen, but it causes things to happen to them. It's not, the bibbity bobbity boo doesn't matter. The names you fucking recite, if they matter less than you think. Now, I can tell you from my research, there is strong evidence for, and I've had the experience of contacting beings on the other side, whether you call them spirits, ghosts, angels, demons, gods, whatever your moniker for them is, there are entities in the ethereal realm. There are intelligences at work that are not physical. That's because intelligence is not a physical thing. Intelligence has nothing to do with physicality. Physicality, the intelligence of the physical body, it's a corridor. It's an interface. The human mind that you operate with when you are awake in this embodied state is your higher mind or your hidden mind that has been filtered through the limitations of whatever's going on here as an expressive device, as an interface device. And of course, this interface device is illusory. You think you're a person with a face and a brain and a back. No, you're none of those things. These are just things that are appearing to you, and you're seeing them from the perspective of that. And so you get lost in it. You think, hey, I'm this person. That's all that I am. No, this body is not you. I can prove that to you in 2 seconds. Did you have a body in your sleep last night? Did you need your body in your sleep last night? No, you didn't. You did not have a body in your sleep last night. And people say, well, Thorin, you obviously must have a body because your wife can like flick you on the nose and wake you up. No. In that moment, she has a body for me. Let me say that again. I did not have a body when she flicked me in the nose to wake me up. She flicked the body that she has for me. She has her avatar that represents me. She flicked her avatar's nose. This is all her avatar, and this is all my avatar. The whole world is an avatar for something else, right? So that body in her dream, in her waking existence, isn't my body. It's her body that her mind created as a holographic interface for her to interact with my consciousness, my soul. When I say my consciousness, my soul, I'm using stupid person English because that's not what it is. I don't possess it. It possesses this guy. I am consciousness experiencing this person, this mind, blah, 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 blah. So her mind created an embodied avatar to interact with that represents me so that she can communicate with my mind when my mind is not awake in this dimension of manifestation. When you start to realize what's really going on, this makes perfect sense now. So no, in that moment, I didn't have a body. But I still have existence. It may be unformed to me, but it is formed to her. And it's drawing from the same fundamental existence from which I am drawing from to generate my own view of myself. So what that means is she is reading from the same source that I am when I generate my own mental hologram of myself. Now, she may generate a completely different one. Who knows what she sees? But I don't have a body in the objective sense when I'm sleeping. Nobody does. You don't have a body in a real world that can be killed. You have someone else's body that represents you. And if they kill that, well, then it gets interesting. Do you die? Or does their version of you die? Does their access to you die? We're getting very subjectivist here, aren't we? But it's a valid question because we don't have any knowledge of anything save through the subjective portal of our experience. So, what dies? If my wife decided tonight to kill me in my sleep, would I die? Would my body die? Or would her action merely convince me that she killed me, and so therefore I would wake up dead? Ooh, now we're getting weird places, aren't we? But this is, in no uncertain terms, what our model of reality looks like when we take physicalism, materialism, and we realize that it's illusory. We realize that physicalism and materialism and phenomenal reality is an illusory appearance of something more real, a mirage, if you will. When you realize that, the physical no longer completely holds sway over you. This is why I keep drilling into your guys' head for years. The fundamental, most important realization: you want magic to work like a vending machine, even though it's not, the best way to achieve that is to recognize you are not this experience you're having. You're the knower of that experience. You're the knowing of that experience. You're the act of knowing itself. That's what you are. That is what existence is. Existence and knowing are the same word to the non-dual ear. To a non-dualist, when you say this exists, you're telling me that's awareness. When you say I'm aware of something, you're saying I exist something. Like, the words mean the same thing. They're interchangeable. They're fundamentally nuanced, but they're interchangeable. It's like saying, oh geez, I can't come up with it. It's like having two words for the same thing. Okay. It's like soda and pop, right? They mean the same thing to us. So this whole idea that you're a physical person living on a physical rock, floating out in physical space, that is only true within this hologram. And the hologram that you experience is subjectively yours. No one else will ever experience that. You can't share it. So what's really going on here? When you encounter an alien, for example, you see a UFO land and Big Bug Eyes pops out and says hello. Are you actually seeing the alien? No, you're seeing your own mind's representation of whatever that really is. And it's seeing its own representation of whatever you really are. And these different representations all coexist in a big symphony, a big cooperative dream. And that is why that dream appears causal and deterministic, because it is a group of conscious actors, conscious agents, minds, intelligences. I think Donald Hoffman calls them conscious agents, I think is what he calls it. Yes, of course Harvard says aliens are here because they've never left. We've been here the whole time. The idea that human beings evolved here by themselves and we would have become this without help is absurd. I've said this so many times. I guarantee you there's humans everywhere. I guarantee you there's humans throughout at least the galaxy. So, and Slim Lewis just made a great post. He says, this aligns with much of I've learned as a guitarist. The music I play exists before I play it in the physical world. I can hear it in my mind. This is your Hermetic understanding. I don't mean the Kabbalion, which is Hermetic inspired. It is not the Hermetica. It is not Hermeticism. If you're a newbie to magic and you're going, oh, the Kabbalion, such this powerful, it's a great work, but it's one of these days I should sit down and do a real breakdown of it and explain to you what I love about it and what I hate about it. It has definitely got some very useful beginners understandings, but it is not really good. It can actually get you in the wrong direction if you're not careful. It's really about mentalism. It's not really Kabbalion. I mean, it's not really Hermetic. It's Hermetic inspired. Does that mean it's not Hermetic? Like, oh, it can't be. Well, some would argue that you still could, because there's a lot of Hermetic texts that are not technically the Hermetic, like they're in the tradition, like they're inspired by. So you could say the Kabbalion's Hermetic, but it is not actually the Hermetic tradition. It's loosely based on it. Even the way they present the principles are not, actually found that way, except for, little pieces of them. So it's not, the Kabbalion's great for that, for a beginner. If you're a little teeny bopper, which, you're 13 years old and you just went to Barnes and Noble and that's your first magic book, you could do a whole lot worse. And it's very, very, very approachable if you're not already well experienced. But it is not what I would consider the end all be all. In fact, it is definitely a 101 basic book. And the problem with it is too many people think it's advanced. They think it's the whole story, and they get weird, they get a weird understanding of things. that's not whole. It's a little flaky. It's a little bit off. Doesn't mean it's all wrong. It just means it's not 100%. But anyway, we do everything that we manifest in the physical. Everything that is manifested in the physical is sourced in, now I'm going to say the mental, but only in comparison to the physical. Because fundamentally, you notice the word mental is in fundamental? You guys, hello? Hello? Fundamental? Mentality isn't first before physicality. Rather, physicality is a consequence of a certain kind of mentation. You with me? Physicality is a dream that the mind is having. Right now, you're listening to me, Twilight. What's up, brother? You're listening to me, and your mind is dreaming that you're listening to me. But your mind is generating, or is that set of experiences, sure. But what inspires that? Well, the same source that inspires that inspires you to be you. That same source inspired the Big Bang. Not in a physical way, in a way that manifests to all of us as this idea of the Big Bang. Is that what really happened? No, of course it's not what really happened. Nothing ever happened. There's never been a physical world in the objective sense, in the absolute sense. There's only a physical world in the shared collective agreement of subjective awareness. We are all a whole butt-fuck ton of conscious agents, as Donald Hoffman would call us, creating our own personal hologram of reality, which is inspired and influenced and cooperatively created, this narrative, by all of us together, witnessing the same source, which is the ultimate self from a different perspective. It's a maddening concept, but it's easy once you get it. It's the simplest explanation for reality that there is, and it makes perfect sense when you get there. Science can still work exactly as you want it to. If you're a hard materialist at heart, you can make science be exactly what it looks like. There's nothing that it doesn't refute science, except when science says this is all there is. Then it says, no, silly child, you come from us, not the other way around. See, science materialism wants you to think that consciousness comes from material, backwards. So materiality, physicality, is the dream hologram. Now, again, how do we get back to Dr. Greer? Where's Thorne going on this tangent? Because Dr. Greer is telling you fundamentally the same thing, and that the advanced civilizations of existence, not even the universe, of all existence, know this. In fact, we're one of the retarded outliers because we've been indoctrinated into a lie. Guys, this is the part that's gonna hurt people bad if it's not broken to them gently over a period of time. Luckily, I think a lot of humanity is ready for the gentle unveiling of this fact. That's what the New Age movement ultimately is probably all about, although I think it was originally to try to screw us and send us off into the wrong directions, because that's mostly what the New Age bullshit has been for the last 30 years. It's mostly been a bunch of hooey. It's mostly been nothing against crystal rubbing, but it's mostly been a bunch of crystal rubbing hooey that isn't based in much of anything of substance. But in that New Age movement, there is a core, a seed, an element that is actually brilliant. And it is the truth. And it is coming out through that modality. And we're seeing it more and more. I keep finding more and more New Agey people that are starting to tune in to the same things that I've been saying for years, their own ways. And they align more with what a lot of us conspiracy weirdos have been saying for a long time. They're starting, if not always seeing it, they're starting to realize it. They're starting to apply a better understanding. They're waking up. Now, the New Age movement is true. We are entering into this New Age. We are entering in, if we're not already in it. We're probably leaving at least one of the bad eras of the Kali Yuga, if not the Kali Yuga itself. We're embarking on a new golden age. It will begin in our lifetimes. I have firmly a belief of this. I will be shocked if I am wrong. If there's a big bright flash and we all get nuked, I will be so shocked. I will be sitting there like, floating up in whatever astral space we all end up in, like boink. That I'll be really fucking confused. I won't buy it. I'll be fucked because I won't be able, like, that's not my reality anymore. That reality doesn't exist for me. And if it happens, wow, that'll be really weird. That means I got it really, really, really wrong. But we're seeing this convergence of different groups of people that are all gradually pushing, pulling, guiding the collective of spiritual, and I don't mean religiosity. Fuck religiosity. Those people are usually not very spiritual. The ones that are, good for them. I'm happy for them. If you can still be spiritual and have a religious hang up, but a lot of people are just religious. They're not spiritual. And they're more interested in the container the spirituality comes in than the actual spirituality. They don't care about this. They want to make sure that they're worshiping the right box that the spiritual truth is contained in. They're stupid. Okay, that's stupid when you do that. You are unwise when you do that. So Dr. Greer is obviously into the New Age stuff. Dr. Greer is obviously telling you the same kinds of metaphysics, very dumbed down, by the way. He might be a brilliant doctor and good at this other shit. His understanding of the metaphysics, either he presents it in the most layman way possible because he just assumes everybody's stupid, or he doesn't himself know. But I can vouch for the little bit that I've experienced of his teaching stuff. It's very rudimentary, but it is okay. It is functional. It's very rudimentary, but it is functional. You're not going to go very far with it. But one of the things that impresses me with his work, whether I trust him or not, is that it is the exact same kind of thing that people like me are telling you, and the same kinds of practices I encourage. Meditation, consciousness awareness, realizing coming to a realization that you are not a person, you are consciousness witnessing a person. You are not a place or being. You're watching this being in this place, and this place and this being is a mental hologram. 3D reality is a personal hologram that you don't share with anybody else. No one sees your personal hologram. Isn't that interesting? This is why everybody is Neo. Everybody is Jesus. Everybody is Buddha. Not a single one of you is not that. In your reality, if you're looking at me going, wow, he's got it all figured out. You do too. That's why you're manifesting me explaining it to you. You already know. You just haven't allowed yourself to realize it the way some of us have. And I'm working on realizing a whole bunch of other stuff that I still don't get. This is just the foundation. The foundation of all the great work is the recognition of what you truly are. You must begin from you must begin from the source, the truth. You can't make a river starting at the ocean. You must start from a tiny, tiny little aquifer, or tiny, tiny little, trickle coming out of a rock somewhere at the top of a mountain. That's how a river starts. You must get to the source. But wait, is that the source? Let's take the metaphor a little further. Is the source of the river that little rock at the top? No, it's the sky. It's where the rain is. The rain falls and it becomes the source of all rivers and oceans. And then we realize that all rivers and oceans are just a form that the rain is taking. Then you realize that rain is from the sky and rain is just a form the skies. And you start to realize everything is just a form the source is taking. And there we go. Now you're on track. You're getting it. So you've got to realize that if you want to excel in magic, if you want to get really far, You must get that foundational realization in place, and it may take you the rest of your life. And I'm not saying you can't practice magic along the way, or sorcery, or manifestationism, or any of this cool shit. Please don't think that's what I'm saying. But what I am going to say is, the more success you have with your practices at achieving what your goals are without attaining that realization of your true nature, these acquired abilities or resources or tools or traditions or whatever, these acquired powers end up becoming what keep you in this place of suffering. They keep you unenlightened. They keep you ignorant, because let's put it this way. A poor person will learn to be rich. They will learn to work. They will learn a skill. They will whatever. They improve themselves hoping that they will become rich in the process. A rich person doesn't. So if you've already got all of the bells and whistles and all the goodies of the magical vending machine that you imagine exists, and they all poured out all over you, and you're just comfortable, you're always sitting there, you're half naked, you're living on an island you bought yourself with your magical lottery money, and you got the whole works going for you. You got whatever your fantasy vision of power is, you've got that. Do you care about non-duality and transcendence at that point? Does that even, if you're having a wonderful life, does that even pop up? Does that even matter to you? No, not as strongly. This is also one of the secondary meanings of the parable about the rich man going through the eye of a needle versus a camel type of thing from the Bible. The story of a rich man, a camel has a higher probability of going through an eye of a needle than a rich man of seeing the kingdom of heaven. Why is that? Well, in the Bible, they make it seem like because he's just not generous, he's selfish. Okay, selfishness is a symptom. That's not the problem. The problem is that because of his lifestyle, he's egoic, and he doesn't realize that there's more to him than the ego. And so he does everything to aggrandize that ego, including giving huge sums of money as donation or whatever. He does not seek to transcend the ego, not get rid of it. That you've never, again, if you've ever listened to me and people go, Thorne's all into being anti-ego now. No. Hear the nuance. Ego's beautiful, but it's got to be trained. It's a monkey. It's got to be domesticated by the higher self, the hidden self, the true self. The true self, the hidden self, the higher self, Brahman, the soul, Atman, whatever you want to call this thing that you really are, must train the ego mind, the ego complex, the monkey brain. You must train it to serve you, not itself. You see, if you live for your ego, you're not alive. You're an NPC. If your ego is your mask, if it's your toy, if you realize your ego is not what you are, it is just what you're doing. Now you get to have your cake and eat it too. You get to experience ego from a perspective of, holy shit, this is fun. It's not really me. This is my avatar, like in a video game. Do you get all upset when your character in a video game dies? Oh, sure, you might be touched. You might be like, oh, well, that sucked. Why did they kill off Commander Shepard? Right? Unless you did the Renegade ending. You might be brokenhearted about it, but you're not broken up about it because you didn't die. Just the dude that you've been controlling died in the game world. What do you think this is? Same thing. Yeah, I got to get more into Hanuman and stuff, Twilight. You know what's cool about that one? Robert Sepper brings it up. It's Robert Sepper time. Robert Sepper brings it up, usually in between mouthfuls of sushi and dumb shit. As much as I love his work, I may love his work, but man, is he cringy. But in a good way. I guess. He's got a bad attitude. Anyway, enough about him. In one of his videos, he brought up Hanuman as evidence for a period of history. Immortan, yes, yes. I just watched that, but this tangent, not right now, Maiden. Don't make me switch gears to the new Mad Max movie. Where was I? Robert Sepper brings up Hanuman. I can't pronounce it right. Forgive me. Brings up Hanuman as an example of, so the aliens come and they start engineering humans, and one of the intermediary phases was an ape-like being like Hanuman. And the idea is that Hanuman represents what humanity used to be when the Anunnaki or whatever first started making us. That was like maybe one of our first incarnate forms that they developed, or one of the variants of us that existed, Planet of the Apes style. And some people do believe in a literal interpretation to some degree, not obviously every detail, but some degree, a literal interpretation of some aspects of that mythology. And it is a beautiful story. It's a powerful story. And you could do a lot worse than working with that archetype that Hanuman represents. So, absolutely. Hanuman's awesome, dude. I love Hanuman. I'm not as familiar with him, but he is pretty fucking cool. Let's see. Okay. All right, Maiden, you're right. I wouldn't be dissing the sushi. I love the sushi. You're right. Although we don't know. Like, I have never had California sushi, which is like some sort of a sin if you're in America. I've had New York sushi, which I guess is like second best. I don't know. Where's the good sushi in the world? The irony is, as much as I hate living in a blue state for certain reasons, blue states have the better, like, just, you know, that kind of shit. like, I don't know. I could be wrong, but I get a feeling you're not going to get great sushi down in like Richmond, not Richmond. You might in the hillbilly country of Kentucky.
New York has the best buttered rolls.
And my wife rightfully points out that New York has the best buttered rolls. That is correct. But yeah. All right. So back to Greer. So I see you guys are talking about Greer very intelligently. Who was it that said, I saw it before. Let me scroll up. Who was it that said he's a gray hat? Because that's the person who's got their head screwed on. Twilight Sun. Yeah, of course it's Twilight. Of course. Your head's pretty screwed on straight. You're pretty tuned in. So Twilight says, we're talking about Greer, and people are asking, like, is he good? Is he bad? Which is it? And I agree. I think he's a gray hat. I think he's like an Alex Jones maybe, or a Tucker Carlson. I think he's in that spectrum. I don't know if he is really a gray hat or a light black hat, you know. I think he's a gray hat. I have a feeling the Rockefeller he was friends with, Lawrence Rockefeller, right? Whatever. I think he was probably a gray hat as well. And what is a gray hat, though? Now, I do have certain worries about Greer. I think that maybe initially he was a big honeypot. Because if you notice, his big thing is, come tell me your secrets and we'll release them for you. Oh, yeah, sure. That sounds really not fishy at all, bro. Yeah, trust me, bro. We're going to release your free energy tech that you invented in your garage that we just spent 3 hours telling you don't tell anybody about. Tell everybody about. Because they're going to, the government's going to try to take it away from you. And we're telling you to give it to us and we're going to release it for you. You can give us everything and we're going to open source it. I want to believe that. I really do. But a part of me wonders, are you sure that's not just a clever honeypot setup? How many people have gone to Greer to have, I'm just questioning, I'm not accusing. I would confront him with this gently myself. I would probe him for this answer psychically. I would see if I could get him to trip up and give me a hint, and then I might start probing deeper. If I could get him to admit to certain things, I might be able to figure it out. I might even ask him point blank, how do we know you're not a honeypot? And I'm not accusing, I'm asking, how do I know you're not a honeypot? And there are ways that he could respond. I don't mean what he would say, but how he would say it. There's ways he could respond that I could read and be like, Okay, that's a sincere answer. He really believes he's a good guy. That doesn't mean he is a good guy. It just means he thinks he is. He believes he's on the right side of history. He's trying to do the benevolent thing. I could read that in him, probably. So I would like to just get him candidly when he least expects it and just talk to him and hang out. All these people, like, you have to understand, as a reader, that's a fantasy of mine, not to meet people to like, oh, hero worship. No, to read them firsthand where they can't fake me as easily. I'd like to get them in a casual conversation, get their baseline and figure them out, and then talk to them and probe them and figure out what they really think. Ooh, I love doing that to people. Especially these important people. Oh, man. You guys want to have some truth? Let's put a collection together. Get like 100 grand saved up so I can buy meetings with these people, and I'll do readings. I'll give you my assessment of them. All right, that's a funny joke. I'm not serious because I don't think I have the chutzpah to do that as a business, but it would be fun. If nothing else, it would be entertaining to see my take on it afterward. Anyway, so I think he's a gray hat. I think that I want him to be more of a white hat or a light gray hat. I don't honestly know either way. So all I'm going to say is he is a fantastic source, just like Alex Jones can be if you're a beginner to conspiracy land. But you had better, and I can't emphasize this enough, you had better not drink the Kool-Aid with any of these characters. Don't drink my Kool-Aid. Do I put Kool-Aid out? Nah. But if I did, don't drink it. Never drink the Kool-Aid. Not unless you want to go on the ride to the comet. But other than that, ooh, I got the hiccups. Stream over. I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I have Alf hiccups. When I really start hiccuping, if you ever watch the old show, Alf, there it goes, it's starting. If you ever watch the old TV show Alf, when he starts hiccuping, it'll like melt the paint off the walls. That's like me. When it's starting. Mm-hmm. You guys are gonna be cracking up in a minute. If I really start hiccuping, you guys are gonna lose your fucking minds. You're gonna be laughing your ass. I sound like a it's like the worst. My wife can hear me literally 2 acres away at work, across the parking lot. That's right, Maiden. I want to poison you all with the Kool-Aid. The thing is, though, Maiden, she says, I would love to see you doing that after the WF losers. The only problem, though, is that a lot of those people, they're trained very well in psychic stuff. When you're watching a famous person and they're sitting there like this, you know, they're of course, the idiot Christian's like, oh, no, that's some satanic high symbols. No, they've just been trained in certain mudras. They've been trained in meditation. They've been trained in ways to present themselves, to literally be sincere, to blah, 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 blah. So that's why I say, like, you got to be careful with the professionals because they may be trained in how to actually get around people like me because they know we exist, one thing. Two, a lot of these people are very well informed of the esoteric truth. Not all of them. I don't mean all of them. No. A lot of them are idiots. But a Klaus Schwab, guaranteed that motherfucker knows some shit. Guaranteed that guy's got spiritual practices. Guaranteed. Even that asshole Yuval Harari, which is just this huge materialistic, asshole who's just constantly like trying to get people. He's just one of the bad guys, right? He's just one of the materialistic bad guys. Okay, look up Yuval Harari and listen to what he says. The guy's clearly he's a propaganda agent trying to push materialistic science without any of the underlying metaphysics to make you a drone. He even says that practically when he says humans are hackable animals, the age of human free will is over, and blah, blah, blah. That is something only one of the dark side people would ever say. Even if they're saying it in a cautious tone, you know that he's saying that because that's what they're doing. They're trying to do it. Thank you, Twilight. See, Twilight knows. Twilight's tuned in. Yes, he's a Kabbalist. Okay, there's no question. But he's the out of balance Saturn Kabbalist. So this is why that whole Reddit, or I think it was, it was Above Top Secret or whatever it was, the whole thing about the hidden hand. That's why that whole thing, even though I don't believe that specific example, I think that person, assuming they were making it up, was actually in the right direction. Maybe they were speculating, but I think I agree with that speculation to a point. I do believe that there is, again, not to blow more smoke up Robert Sepper's ass, but look at his video about the origin of Zionism. I'm sure some people could refute it, but it's pretty strong what he says. This is traced back to Zabbatai Levi in the 1600s, then through the early Marxist and communist movements, the Enlightenment era, the French Revolution, all this. You trace that line, and the Illuminati and all that. You trace those people, and you find out that they go back to this character, this Sabbatai Levi character, that started a lot of what we would think of as the Western Illuminati mystery school shit, right? Yeah, it was Godlike Productions. That's what it was. Was it Top Secret or was it God? I can't remember, but yeah, it was from there. Somebody posted it on Discord, and it was interesting. So these guys, you have to understand, these guys, they worship Saturn out of balance. When I say they worship Saturn out of balance, they worship both the consciousness of the planet Saturn. They worship the archetype of that they have associated with Saturn. The archetype of time and decay, corruption, the dark side of Saturn. Not the positive aspects of Saturn. Saturn has positive aspects. Saturn in balance is a beautiful part of the material frame. It is one of the things that makes the material world beautiful. Without Saturnian influence, time and entropy, death, corruption, endings, harvest, without those just dark elements, you wouldn't have the light. It's the black sun that makes the other sun shine. Without the black sun to compare, there's no bright sun. It's the yang, it's the inside of the yin yang. But if you prioritize only one over the others, what happens? It's out of balance. Now, why do they worship this, though? That's the hard question for some people, because you don't think the way they're thinking. You think in 2D, at best 3D. They're thinking in an even more number of dimensions. What they're thinking is they understand, and I'm going to go back on some things I used to say. I'm starting to realize that, yeah, there may be a generative or creative aspect to Maya. That is to say, there may be an intelligent or an intelligence that generates or creates the holograms. That's in other words, there may be a high mind, a big mind that is this whole thing, and then we generate small pieces of it. But there may be a generative principle, not just a source, but a principle that takes that source and filters it, becoming generative in that sense. It becomes generative by filter. But there could be an intelligence to it. It could be a being, not just a force of nature. It could be an intelligence in nature. I'm opening my mind to this possibility. Not that there's a God that we have to worship, but there may be a collective creator intelligence that you are part of. You're not a property of it, like it owns you. You're not its property. You are a property of it. You are a part of it. You are a part of its process. Your mind is part of that greater mind, and it's all a big process that's creating this. That's like the true Hermetic, not the Kabbalion, the true Hermetic principle. And we see this again and again and again. If you read or do research on Billy Meyer, you do research on some other stuff, there does appear to be a creative or creator or generative intelligence at play, and that this intelligence, when challenged, when its creation is threatened, this intelligence has a tendency to show up and get involved. So one theory is that these people who worship the black sun, the pillar of severity, right? They're working the pillar of severity, not mercy nor balance. They're working the pillar of severity because they're trying to act as a catalyst or crucible. Twilight, I'm about to throw something at you because this is something you might not have realized where I was coming from 4 years ago. When you're like, bro, you can't be on the side of the... I wasn't on their side, but I happen to believe that in their twisted mind, they are serving the creator by trying to destroy the creation to bring about the creator's response in the form of sending a messianic force or being or whatever. The thing is, they're so sick and demented, I guess, that they think they're going to control that or own it, or it's going to be, or maybe they are being selfless about it. Maybe they, just like that hidden hand thing in the, whatever it was, the above top secret godlike production thing, maybe they hate this. Maybe they don't like doing these evil things. I don't buy that. Not at all. I think that's at least not the ones we know about. I don't really think Hillary Clinton's sitting there going, I'm so sorry I cut your face off, little darling. I had to do it for the adrenochrome. And if I didn't, then humanity wouldn't transcend into the golden age. No, I don't think that's Hillary. I think Hillary's going, yeah. I think she's a monster. I think if I got, I'd probably need some heavy weaponry, because I have a feeling Hillary ain't just a person. Just don't know why. And I think she's dead now, by the way. I don't think she's even alive anymore. But that's someone I would love. I'd love to be in that room. I'd love to read her as I work. I'd love to be like, what's making you tick? I'd love to see what she thinks. But I also think that, so Twilight's agreeing. He says that's exactly what they think, but I think it's more nuanced than that. I don't think it's so monolithic. I think that there are elements of them that believe this that way, like they're serving the creator by doing this. And then there are some that believe that they are challenging the creator and trying to conquer reality by doing this. I think that there's different levels of interpretation in that culture. And I think that that's crafted. I think that's curated. I think that the ones that maybe are at the very tippity top of this, they are doing this for a benevolent reason. They're trying to work as a catalyst to make humanity grow, to become good. Go research what I can't think of his name, but the guy who started the old Adam Weishaupt. We will give man utopia, but first he must be made good. First he must be made good. What does that mean? Humanity has to be shown the error of their ways. We have to be driven to the near point of destruction. And then in other words, they use a Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution. They create a problem. Humanity reacts in a bad way, and they've got a solution ready to go. And they say, hey, I know this bad thing happened. We just happen to have this idea just sitting here in our think tank. Let's try this. But that's always been the point, was that idea they wanted you to adopt. So this is where you got to put your big boy panties on, your big girl panties on. You got to think not in a reactive, biased, egoic way. You've got to think in a more open-minded and, shall we say, nuanced way, and recognize that it's possible there are no good guys and there are no bad guys. There may be good people, bad people involved, but there is no good guy team and bad guy team. That might even be why everything's so the way it is. This might be why we don't have, let's assume, reptoid, draconian, empires are at sort of a cold war with the Galactic Federation, and it's just like Star Trek up there with the Gorn and the Klingons, but it's the Draco reptilians, the Kaikar reptilian empire versus the Lyran Pleiadian, good guy team. That's basically the Federation, like Star Trek. Maybe that is what it is. Maybe it's that black and white. Maybe it really is just cartoon evil versus cartoon good. I don't think so. I'm sure that's out there. I don't doubt that that's in existence. Of course it is. But I don't think that that's what the top shelf looks like. I think the top shelf really just looks like, if there is a dualistic aspect to it, they're both sitting there in agreement about what needs to be done. This is why all of the more sophisticated spiritual traditions tell you that the king of hell is the same as the king of heaven. It's the backside of the king of heaven is the face of the king of hell. This is why you have in Chinese, Japanese, and certain Indian mythology, the ruler of hell is also the same as the ruler of the ascended planes. And this ain't new. This is throughout. There's interpretations of Hellenistic and Greek and Egyptian mythology that look the same way. There are people who speculated the same thing, that Zeus was actually Hades and Poseidon, that Zeus was all three. That was an interpretation. Of course, we're talking late stage cargo cults here, but the point is still valid from a metaphysical perspective. Maybe if we're talking about some ethereal beings in some other dimensions, who the hell knows? I'm not here to tell you what it is. I'm just here to tell you what everybody tells and thinks, and then try to make sense of it, right? Sounds like a uniparty to me. Sure does. Sounds like WWE, the spiritual edition. Yes, Twilight. And this is why you have in that, I'm going to start calling it the Semitic tradition instead of the Jewish tradition, because I don't think it's obviously not unique to them. I think it goes back, originated in Atlantis, and then over time turned into what we call that we call Judaism or Semitic metaphysics. But it's not exclusive to them. I think India's got a really good, I think India is one of the more, the Indian spiritual path, I think, is more whole. I think it hasn't been corrupted as bad. It's corrupted. There's no question. There's missing, there's holes, there's problems. But Hinduism, I think, is the least corrupted of the spiritual traditions. That's what I think. Doesn't mean that's the only one you need, but I think if you spend time with Hinduism, you will suddenly understand all the others. I think if you focus on your Hinduism, I think Christianity will make sense. I think Judaism will make sense, because that's how it's worked for me. When I really devote myself to Advaita Vedanta and I grasp, I get it, bing, I got conceptually understand it, and then I get it mystically and all that. Suddenly Christianity makes perfect sense. Suddenly Abrahamism makes perfect sense. I can see where they corrupted it, and I can see why they corrupted it. I can even see how you can still use it in that form and just twist a few ideas a little bit, and it will work. I could probably, if I had the patience, I could probably devise a non-dual, compatible Christianity, and nobody would be like, oh, Christians are so moral. No, I would take all the moralism out. I would just show you that, sort of like Paul Wallace does with his his various books about from the fifth kind and all that. In a similar way, he reinterprets it with a better interpretation of the words, and now it's about ancient aliens when he does that. In a similar way, all of these stories can be reinterpreted with just a little adjustment. They could sound exactly compatible with everything in the higher mystical traditions of Hinduism. There wouldn't be much that would be in disagreement, in fact. So, hey, what's up, EA Quetting? EA Quetting is here again. We should have you back on. Did you get a chance to watch those videos that I sent you the other day, EA? Did you get a chance to see them yet? If not, please watch them. All right, guys, one of the things I am going to be calling it a little early tonight. I'm going to give myself 20 more minutes. I'm going to give myself a hard limit. So let me give the floor to you guys. What do you guys, give me a topic to riff on for 20 minutes. It could be political, spiritual. It could be, of course, conspiracy theory, whatever you want. I'm just reading chat right now. What's up, Dan Best? How's it going? Been a minute. What's going on? All right, let me scroll up again and see what I missed. Ooh. Ah. Woo. So Twilight asks, why do we poop? Same reason you breathe. Poop is just one way for prana to leave the body, baby. Prana converted into meat, into the food body, and then it becomes the poop. It's just a transmutation of prana, bro. And then it enters. It just goes lower vibe until it just entropy. Just Saturn just eats. Guys, Saturn eats shit. You do know that, right? All right, I'm joking, but it sounds true. Saturn eats shit. Yeah, Saturn decays the food, turns it into shit. It's entropy. Saturn is the power of entropy, corruption, time. It is the dimension of time. Saturn represents the dimensionality of time and everything that implies. Anything that participates in time is a fallen being. There's only one problem with that, Safi. Safi says, everything is built on symbols, considering this is a holographic dream. No. Symbols are the ciphers. Symbols are the keys. Why do I say that? Because the symbols represent things which the hologram is based on. So it is not the symbols that are the basis of holographic reality. We actually use those symbols to point at the sources of the elements or the source itself. So you get this point in your language. Like I'm trying to explain this to you where I'm thinking non-dualistically, but I've got to speak dualistically. And the problem is they're both true and they're both false from a different point of view. So from a non-dual perspective, there is no such thing as symbols. Symbols are just manifestations. They're just maya. Symbols are not reality. They don't represent reality. Reality is not made of symbols at all. The hologram is not made of symbols. There are no symbols here until you call them that. A sphere is not a sphere until you've heard the word and associate it with that experience. So every symbol you've ever come across is something that the mind identifies. It's nama rupa, name and form. Now, where do name and form come from? This is where you get a little deeper. So symbols are not the foundation of the hologram. They represent the foundation of the hologram. Does that make sense now? So think of it this way. If you're on a computer right now, or when you get a chance, go on your computer and look at your desktop. Is your desktop operating system, is your desktop image, is it made of icons? Is it made of a background image? Is it made of pixels? What is it made of? What is this? What is the structure? What are the parts that make that desktop? None of them make your desktop. They are representative of the inner workings of your computer, which don't look anything like this. They represent the source. They represent the reality, but they are not a reality. They're not intrinsic at all. Reality is not made of symbols. Symbols are punched out of reality. Symbols are outlined. You look at something and say, That's different from that. And as soon as you do that, your mind has a way of highlighting, outlining, cutting out, and creating. The mind will take, so think of it this way. Imagine you were born into this world and no one ever taught you language at all. No one ever taught you a single fucking word. What's this? Let's do that again. You were born into this world. No one taught you a single fucking word. What's this? I'm not being mean. I'm trying to just be irreverent because it's more entertaining. You were born into this world. No language at all whatsoever. No one told you anything about anything. You're just born and you just somehow you're survived. Like maybe you're on the end of a feeding tube or something, so you can't die. You have no teaching of symbolism, of words, of anything like it. If that's the case, what's this? I love that. I love picking random shit off my desk. I think Siege knows what my desk looks like. That's right, Maiden. That's right. Look up the Zen koan about the little boy. There's a beautiful Zen koan, which I could turn into a twisted middle finger version, where this little boy, he's a student of this high-end monk who's like really renowned. And whenever someone asks the monk, I think they ask him what the meaning of enlightenment is or something like that. I forget exactly, some deep thing. And the monk would always raise his finger and point to the sky. And the little child who was his student was emulating him. And one day someone, for whatever reason, I think the monk asked him, he noticed that the little child would always emulate him. He didn't know what it meant, but he emulated him. And so every time someone would ask him, the master asked the little boy, what's enlightenment or the meaning of the universe, whatever the fuck it is. He does this, and the monk cuts his finger off. Just cuts his finger right off. And in that moment, the child was enlightened. If you get that koan, you get that, you understand the middle finger. You get what I was getting at. It's the same realization in both stories. Your idea, the name and form is not what Maya is not made of name and form, friend, at all. Name and form is made of Maya. Okay? But name and form, Maya as well, represent what is the source of Maya. So Maya represents its source. Do you get it? Maya is like a shrouded reflection. Imagine a mirror imagine a spherical mirror that reflects unto itself only. Imagine a spherical mirror with perfect reflection capability. When that mirror is reflecting its other side, it's reflecting itself back at itself. That's what Maya is. Maya is a self-reflecting. It's nous, I suppose you could say, but it's mental consciousness. It's not pure awareness consciousness. It's self-reflective consciousness. That's what nous is. You have source, which is reality or existence. So that's the one, the monad, Brahman, Atman. Then you have its reflection, which is nous, Maya. Okay. And it's different. Maybe I got the terms a little off. It's been a while. I don't really care about the terms. I care what they mean, right? I'm more interested in what they mean than what the words say. Maybe it's the logo. So maybe I got it back. Maybe it's the logo. Anyway, I think it's the nous is the reflection. Anyway, Maya isn't all there is to it. It isn't source Maya. It's Brahman, which experiences itself, and in so doing, Maya manifests out of that self-awareness. All right, so to your question, Safi, it's a good question. Thank you for asking this question. If the symbols represent, then is reality better said as concepts or ideas or symbols representing energies? All of that is illusory. Reality is not symbols. It is not concepts. It's not ideas. It's not energies. Safi, I hope that at some point you will start diving into mystical traditions like Advaita Vedanta, Hermeticism, true Hermeticism, not dualistic stuff. Get into Neoplatonism. Get into Gnosticism, even though Gnosticism is dualistic. I think that's a misinterpretation. I think Gnosticism has a very powerful non-dual interpretation. If you treat it as a literal tradition where you take the mythology as literal, that doesn't mean there isn't elements of truth in it, like in an astral or etheric way. Maybe. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm saying if you take it as metaphor for spiritual concepts, Gnosticism's great. It's one of the better Western, occult paths that emulate what Eastern paths do. It's like Buddhism, but in Western world with a more interesting pantheon of weird shit going on. It's not just sitting there like shaving your head and going, "Rrr," but a Zen monk reading old Gnostic texts and what they meant could, with an education, interpret Gnosticism and be like, oh, they're saying the same things almost. Yeah, they got a whole different mythology around it, but they're pointing at the same thing. Gnosis, Zen, Samadhi, transcendental awakening. So reality is not energy. Energy is a manifestation of reality. Because the word that you have, the understanding, the concept you have of energy is its shadow or its reflection, its manifestation. But you don't have a conception of the source. You never will. The absolute, the fundamental nature of reality is unknowable in the intellectual, categorical, definitive sense. It is knowable only in the Gnostic sense. It is knowable only in the transcendental sense. You can know it, and you know it in the exact same way that you know yourself. You know you exist because you know the question. You can experience the question. You can experience the knowing of it. Self-awareness is, true self-awareness is enlightenment. On the Temple at Delphi, Temple of Apollo at Delphi, in the courtyard, there's a famous inscription that says, know thyself. And of course, the modern Western mind thinks that means know your limits, know what things you like, know how strong you are, know your mind, your body, know yourself, know your psychology. No, they were telling you to know your source, your true nature. The Temple of Apollo, the Temple of the sun deity, that persona represents the light side of consciousness, awareness. In opposition almost, it's not really in opposition, but in contrast to the black sun of Saturn, which is ignorance, time, death, entropy, corruption. The sun is perfection, brilliance, light. It's the emitter of consciousness. It is the source of illumination. And illumination is the self-knowing. It's the knowing itself. It's the experience, I should say. Let me correct myself. The illumination is the experience of knowing. So the sun, in this metaphor, Apollo, of course it would be upon the Temple of Apollo. And of course that's one of the strongest ways to get precognition, because you're tuning in the source itself. You're not going through an intermediary. You're going through to the source itself. So symbolism is reductive, but non-duality is not reductive. It's emergent. Non-duality is fundamental, and what we experience is emergent out of it. So reality is not reductive. You cannot reduce this ring to non-duality. You can't do it. You can't take this ring and keep cutting it up into smaller and smaller pieces and get non-duality out of it. But if you occupy single-pointed awareness, if you meditate on a single point, Like maybe look at the eye of this ring. Look at the eye of this ring for days and days and days. You can actually sort of part the veil and recognize the singularity at the center of all things. You can recognize the unity point in anything. You can recognize that this ring is just a perspective of source. And when you see that source from that perspective, you get a ring. It looks like a ring. And without this ring, source would not be. If you took this ring and threw it on the floor, got rid of it, fuck you, ring. You're gone. You disappear from existence, ring. It's like you never were. Source would vanish. I mean, you literally got rid of it. I mean, you stopped witnessing it. I mean, you literally, where'd it go? I'll find it later. Well, it's gone. I guess I wished it away. I guess I just disproved myself. Where'd it go? I'll find it later. Anyway, you make that ring cease to exist. Source ceases to exist. This is why literally everything, including the smallest mosquito ever, is the most important thing to reality. You can't this is why you can't create or destroy anything. Because every single experience, let's pretend that they're materially real. Every single atom in the universe is necessary. It's intrinsic to the universe. If you got rid of one atom, the universe would cease to exist. I'm telling you. That is the understanding of the mystic. They know how important every single piece, because there are no pieces. There's just different perspectives of the whole. I think it did, Maiden. I think it did fall into another timeline. It's the one where I'll find it in about 10 minutes. Yeah. Oh, you guys. So more to your question, Safi. I've had this point, and I got to go in a minute, but I've said this in live streams before. It's a difficult thing to walk you through. Like if I had you face to face, we could like sit and talk and we'd meditate, right? Through a guided meditation, wouldn't be a true meditation, but through a guided meditation, what I would ask you to do is to locate the source of any idea you've ever had. What do I mean by that? Let's try it. You guys probably know what I'm going to do in a minute. I want you guys to all close your eyes, and I want you to imagine. Oh, let's keep that pregnant. I want you to imagine. What are we going to imagine? I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to imagine a perfect sphere. You got it? Can you see it? Can you imagine it in whatever way your imagination works, whether it's verbal or pictorial or whatever it is? Can you imagine that sphere? Is it there in your mind? Where did it come from? What? Where did the sphere come from? Is there in your mind a cabinet in which a whole bunch of bullshit is stored? Do you have like a big filing system where you pull a drawer open and in there's a picture of a sphere? No. When I tell you to imagine a sphere, where does that image of a sphere come from? What is the source of that image? How do you know what a sphere looks like? Oh, because I've seen one in real life. Okay. But is that a sphere then? How many of you guys realize this is not a sphere because there's no such thing as a perfect sphere in nature? Not as a physical object, there is not. There is no such thing as a perfect sphere in nature. So how do you have any idea what a perfect sphere is? How are you capable of a blink? There it is in your mind's eye. Where does it come from? What does a perfect sphere look like? You've never seen one. How can you visualize it? Because the appearance of the sphere is not the perfection of the sphere. Repeat after me, boys and girls. The appearance of the sphere is not the perfection, not the source of the sphere. The source of the sphere is something. I'm going to bring you back to your Plato. The source of the sphere is something which has no form in the observable sense. It has no name. It has no sound. It has no qualities, no anything. It is pure potential. It is infinity chopped into the shape of a sphere. It's in there. You know it's in there, but it doesn't look like anything yet. What does a concept look like until you give it form? This is the essence of idealism. In the tradition of idealism, which is a very close tradition to non-duality, they're very compatible at a certain level. In the tradition of idealism, the understanding is that reality is mental and that everything that we experience is a mental form or idea or ideal. We're talking about Plato's forms or Plato's ideas or Plato's ideals. There's all different ways to describe it. What we're fundamentally talking about is not even information. It is the source of information. It is the essence of information. Because information is manifest. We're talking about unmanifest information. It is still informative, but it is not objective yet. It has not been manifested yet. The hologram that we experience is not built out of symbols. The hologram is fully formed as a mirage by the mind, and then the mind breaks it down according to its nature, according to its dharma, to its logos, whatever your preferred word is for the causal realm of intellect, of pure logic intellect, almost like a supercomputer. Good, Safi. He says, I know before I create, there's nothingness or a void inside me. And that's correct. And you may understand what I'm about to say already, but let me correct you a little bit. Let me refine you a little bit. There is no such thing as nothingness in the literal way it's stated. There is no thingness. Chaos, primordial chaos, is not non-existence. It's not just a big open empty space. It's never been that. That's a misinterpretation of the term. It's not random shit. It's not order broken down into chaos. No, KO, K-H-A-O, excuse me, K-H-A-O-S. KO. It translates roughly to the word gap. That's also what Goetia is. Goetia is the void, the gap, the wailing from the void. KO is not nothingness in the zero sense. It is nothingness in the no thingness sense. It is still existence, but there is no discernible thingness because it is all one perfectly infinite, vast, and I don't mean in the sense of dimensionality, vast potential. It is all potential at once. That's what chaos is. It's not infinity. It's all. The only thing bigger than infinity is everything. Because infinity fits within everything. Infinity fits within existence. So it is not an emptiness in the sense of our conception of nothingness, non-existence, or zero. It is nothingness in the sense that it is unformed, it is unhewn, unextracted, unmanifest potential. It is infinite, what we in the material 3D realm would call infinite energy, yes. So when I corrected you before, I'm correcting you because you're still in that 3D mindset. When you transcend the 3D mindset, you realize it's not energy at all. Energy is just a form it's taking. See, I try to take you guys further than the occult. The occult, as you guys are taught it, is it's Tinker Toys. I'm sorry, it's fucking training wheels, Tinker Toys, and a joke half the time. I can say that with At least the version we get. Let me rephrase that. The version of the occult that we get is bullshit. It's Tinker Toys, and you are wandering in the dark, stumbling around trying to figure out how it works. You're not supposed to get it unless you have a really good IQ and you're really wise. Then it'll start to click in directions and ways you couldn't do before. When I read these things, I read them differently now than I ever did. When I read any of these treatments, any of these Goetia, any of these books, any of these grimoires, especially when you start understanding the meanings of the words, when you start doing the etymology of things, now I'm invoking, what's his name? One of my favorite conspiracy guys, and I can't think of his name. He died recently. Shit. I can't think of his name. Fuck. He's a good one too. When you do the etymology of the words, you find that things that you believe have certain meanings don't. They didn't originally. They have a totally different meaning. Take the word person or persona. We are brought up to believe that the word person means a person. It's me or you. That it's an objective reality. It's a thing unto itself. That a person is a human being that lives and it's got its own personal reality. It is unique. It's isolated. It's separate. It exists by itself. Thank you, Maiden. I'm quite memeable. Wait a minute. Was it Jordan Maxwell? No. Hold on. I'm terrible with names. I know people, not names. I hate names. I think names are awesome and they suck. All right, hold on. Still a little wacky, guys. Hold on. Was it Jordan Maxwell? I don't. Shit. Yep, Jordan Maxwell. Thank you, Twilight Son of Lilith. Thank you. Yes, Jordan Maxwell, 100%. As soon as I see his picture, I go, oh yeah, that's him. Jordan Maxwell loved etymology. And he's like an old school conspiratard, right? He's the type that got the ball rolling for a lot of people. And he did this with his own stubborn, pig-headed, arrogant, I know better than everybody, and I'm going to go find out the truth. And I love people like that. As long as they have the humility to know when they're wrong. I love people like that. They're the apple of my eye. They take a bite out of my own heart. They're basically me. I love people like that because they got the balls to do what other people don't do. They go, you're fucking lying to me and I want to know the truth. You fucker. I am going to go behind your back and I'm going to research and prove you right, wrong, or in between. I'm going to falsify what you're trying to get me to believe. And that's what he did. And he went and he did all the research. He got all the books and he started figuring. And by the way, if you listen to him, his spirituality is not that far off. He wasn't as advanced at all, but his intuitive understanding of spirituality was just like the stuff we're talking about here. Why is it that conspiratards, when we go far enough down the rabbit hole, we all sound like fucking Zen monks and shit? Why do people who go all the way down the conspiracy rabbit hole, they don't limit themselves to just politics? Why is it when you go down the full esoteric breadth and width of the rabbit hole of possibilities, they all end up sounding like New Age, Love and Light, or even Left Hand? They'll still sound like that, talking about source consciousness, etc. Because that's the truth. That's the pot of gold at the end of the bullshit rainbow of lies. If you get through that rainbow, if you follow it to its source, it's a beautiful, beautiful truth that is known to every being every sentient being in the universe has to be indoctrinated out of knowing this. If you leave a primitive culture alone and let them just develop without a dominator influence, trying to create systems of control, like the Aboriginal Australians, or basically any tribal culture that didn't turn into like, here's our city where we do human sacrifice. Every tribal culture has their own way of describing what we would recognize if we're being, shall we say, if we're willing to stretch meanings of certain symbols and ideas. They all know the same thing that I'm describing, maybe not to the sophisticated cosmological level that I do, But they don't have to. They know the truth better because they don't need all of this garbage. Some tribal person who's born into nature and they've never been told that they're not nature. No one's ever told some dude in a loincloth his world is synthetic. No one's ever told him your little bamboo hut is an unnatural abomination. Your loincloth is evil. They don't see themselves as separate from their world. They intuitively recognize a non-dual union with all things. Every one of them, I mean, there are exceptions, I'm sure, but they all understand this. But better than that, they understand, especially the Aboriginal people, they have the dream time, which if you can interpret dream time, you can find out very easily that it is completely compatible with the non-dual view. Of course, that's the beauty of non-duality, is almost every mystical tradition has a place in the non-dual view, because non-duality is the pinnacle that, at least as far as I'm concerned, at this point that I've discovered, there isn't a better mystical ontology available to us. Maybe some aliens have one, maybe the elite do, but the ones we get access to, of all the mystical ontologies we get, it's the most direct, it's the simplest, the most complete, and I think the most accurate way to wake up. But it's not the only way. It's not a religion. It's not meant to. It's a religion in the sense of it's a practice. It's a practice of contemplation, meditation. If that's what religion is to you, then that's what. But it's not religiosity. It's not dogma. It's a set of principles that are universal. And that if they're universal, that means that any truth should be compatible or resonant with that teaching on some level. Okay? Taking into account the difference of culture and language and perspective, like the five blind men and the elephant. There's one elephant. They're all accurately experiencing the elephant. They're all accurately describing their experience of the elephant. None of them are wrong, and yet none of them have a clear understanding of what the elephant is. So no, Advaita by itself is not enough. This is why I like the New York Vedanta Society, because Swamiji, whatever is, I was Vishwanakananda, I can't pronounce his name because I never memorize it. I love his work. I love what he says. I love the way he explains things, because he puts it in the, yes, non-duality is the foundation of reality. And then Vishishtadvaita or non-dual, qualified non-dualism, or you might equate that to idealism a little bit. They're very close. He would express this as you have a very non-dual, then you have a very idealistic, and then which is more dualistic, and then you've got this hard material, like Zen version, because Zen's very materialistic if you really think about it. I don't mean materialist. I'm sorry, that's wrong. Excuse me. Let me correct myself. Zen is more rooted in a more pragmatic, at least modern Zen. Ancient Zen, Chan Buddhism, going back 500-600 years ago, wasn't. If you go back even further, it really wasn't. Like, it's only contemporary Buddhism that's kind of nihilistic. You don't have a soul. You don't exist, and blah, 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 blah. They're not wrong. In fact, I think a lot of it is just the way they're explaining it. People interpret in a way that sounds like it's, I get what they're saying, actually, because Zen was one of my first loves. Zen Buddhism was one of my first mystical passions. When I discovered Advaita, I said, oh, okay, this is the better model for us. And Zen is a great practice, but that's not a model that represents reality. It's just a way to not be suffering in reality. It's great for that. But if you're trying to figure out the nuts and bolts of reality, Zen ain't the way to go. It's just not. What's up, Connor? How's it doing? Hey, brother. It's been a minute. Good to see you. Yes, it was Twilight. That's why I like, again, that's another thing I like about Theoria Apophasis. He translates the original Pali and all that stuff, the original Sanskrit, Praker. Did he do Praker? I think it's the Poly, at least the Poly. And he will tell you the whole, unless he's misinterpreting the Zen teaching, which is possible, but I don't think so, because I've heard Zen people say this. There is no soul, there is no self, there is nothing. No, he does a really good job, in my opinion, of at least pointing out that primordial Buddhism sounded a lot more like it's rooted in non-duality or monism from an ontological metaphysical perspective. You have to understand Zen is not an ontology in the sense that it tells you what reality is. It simply tells you how to stop being deceived by it. Zen is just psychology designed to help you wake up and realize that everything that you think is so real and important is an illusory thing. It's a way to transcend the illusion and live your life to the fullest without the hang-ups and attachments. That's really what it does. It's a great path. It's a great tradition, so long as you don't take it dogmatically as if it's telling you what reality is, you'll be fine. So, I guess I'm going to have to end this here because, like I said, I would end it about midnight, and I think it's midnight now, right? Let me see. Oh, I went 20 minutes long. All right. Well, I'm going to say we're going to cut it off here. I got to say I'm still trying to get my balance back, like critiquing myself. Like I haven't quite got my fluid way of speaking back. I feel like I'm still kind of, it's almost like my encyclopedia or my dictionary got like torched a little bit. Like I got a few pages burnt out of it. I'm trying to figure out how to put it back together. It's almost like I had a mini stroke or something, because it's like my ability to form inspiring sentences doesn't feel as strongly. I feel like I have to pause more. I don't know what did that. Something clicked in my head. I don't know. I have to figure it out. I don't think that way. I still think perfectly like I always do. It's just my ability to express my thoughts took a hit this year from some of the shit that happened. I've been writing a lot again, just to do it, not to produce anything, just write this and that. And I'm finding myself like getting burnt out like halfway through a couple paragraphs. And I go, I sound so freaking like just pedantic and like a try hard. So I don't know what's going on. I probably just need a little bit more time, like I can't find the words like I used to. And I think I just need a little time off from everything to just figure out how, like, I think I have to recreate this persona. That's what I think I do. I think my ego got stomped on so hard that whatever remains of it is just like, and I've got to figure out a new persona to take its place. DH Thorne's cool and everything, but I'll probably never completely evolve away from this character because it's got enough of my deeper essence in it. But I don't like this character like I used to. Like I want to grow him up a little bit. And I've got to figure out how to do that. And I don't know yet. So we'll see. Odo says, it's the UAPs, Thorne. Check it out. Depending upon how much stock you put into things that I would tell you I've experienced when I was younger, then you might say that I believe or think I'm a starseed. You might say, oh, is this guy a starseed? What is he, some sort of Nordic or human draconian hybrid? Because that's what I have memory of being in past lives. I don't talk about this until recently much. I have a friend who I want to bring on at some point. He's agreed that at some point he might come on the show, but I think I've got to talk to him a little bit more about this stuff and show him I'm not just manic, because I've been manic a little bit about this, trying to get him into it. Because it's like, oh, my old good friend, I want to get this guy back on board and sort of redeem some things that went wrong in the past. I want to help him, and I want to sort of help him understand what I screwed up with him. Like I feel like, oh, fuck, I misled him a little bit, and but it would be good to get him around because he was there for a significant portion of it. Not the early days, but the later era when it had turned into like a cult situation. He was there for that. And getting him around to be another person who's seen it besides my wife, because my wife's always vouching for stuff that I do, but he saw me do it. Like he would, so did she, but that's my wife. She's gonna, although my wife likes to correct me, so she'd probably tell me I'm lying if I'm lying. But my friend was there. He could tell you things that I don't remember. So I'll try to get him on. That would be entertaining to do. But there's a lot of stuff when I was younger. You have to understand, I've been doing this since I was 12 or 13, channeling since then. The people I've spoken to who do this stuff, like as a study or a profession, some of them have said that if I'm not exaggerating, which I'm not, but if I'm not exaggerating, then as a young child, I would have been considered a prodigy in what I was doing. I would have been considered, in the occult world, I would have been a prodigy. I'm not bragging. This is something that, in a way, I resisted for a lot of years because I got burned by that prodigy nature. I got too big for my britches. I used it to my advantage, and I didn't get enlightenment from it. In other words, I got the cities without the enlightenment. I got the psychic powers, the gifts, the magical abilities, the channeling of I got all that, but I didn't know what I was. And so everything I did turned to shit with it. Everything turned into self-serving garbage. Everything hurt people. Everything turned into me being the center of this thing, and it was like a pyramid scheme. And even though I wasn't necessarily the one sitting on the throne all the time, it all led back to me getting my way. I used it to manipulate people. Even if I didn't do it maliciously, I still did it. I used it as a tool to get what I wanted. And that's why I put it away, because I thought I was just crazy. I thought I, went nuts. So when I was younger, yes, if you asked me age 15, 16, 17 through 21 or so, 23, 24, if I had experiences with aliens, yes, I had quite vivid experiences, but they were not in my waking world. In my waking life, as far as I know, because maybe they blanked my memory out, in my what I remember, I've never encountered anything like a UFO or an ET that I know of. Maybe there's like a human that's really an ET masquerading, a reptilian in a mask or some shit, if that's all real. Sure, maybe. I'm okay with that. But as far as I know, I was never sitting out in the middle of the woods and a UFO came down and picked me up. And if it happened, they blanked me out, and I don't know. But through hypnosis, transcendental work, things of that nature, channeling, on the other hand, I had memories, vivid memories. I've even had vivid dreams that, looking back, I realized, oh, that's actually considered contact too. If there's certain, so it can just be a dream, but there's certain elements that can make it real. That's not, it's happening in the astral, we'll say. It's happening in the non-physical, the non-local spaces. And so I did have experiences. The problem is, all the experiences I had, as far as I can tell, were probably either with the Greys or what they call the Sasani, if that's real. At least in my current lifetime is what I mean. In past lifetimes, it was like dragons, it was Nordic, powerful humans, it was cat people, bird people, everything from fantasy world, except it wasn't fantasy, but it wasn't sci-fi either. It was some kind of, it was exotic. It was weird. Can't quite explain it, because my mind wants to fill it in with fantasy and sci-fi, and I know it's not right. I know that those are just ways of expressing it. Like, I think the reality, like, if you want to know the truth, I got to end this stream. I keep going. I got to end this stream. If you want to know the truth, look at like retro futurism, look at the old school sci-fi. That's more like what it looks like. The flying saucers, that's not the only way it can look. It can look more contemporary like Star Wars. But to my understanding, when you're thinking those guys, you got to be thinking stuff that would fit better in a 50s sci-fi movie, but brought up to the current era. I wish I could put this into language. Google like retro futuristic UFO stuff. Look at Fallout's idea of like UFOs and stuff. That's not even good enough. That's I can't explain it. Think curvy lines, think no seams, think no bolts, no rivets, no circuits. It's just imagine something formed out of what looks like a solid piece of something, and it could be paper thin and have a whole fucking, it could be the size of your car and have an entire gymnasium inside of it because time and space are different inside of it. It's nothing like the technology we use. It looks hollow. It looks empty because it doesn't need a power source within it. It just taps into 0 point with a very simple to them system. It doesn't, or it's got, so for example, this guy, let me see if I can take this off of here without making up. I got it to end the stream, but I love this shit. So something like this Vajra here, my theory is that whatever this thing was, whatever it really did and looked like, it didn't have a power supply in it. It was a channel for probably the energy that was being produced, probably by the pyramids or whatever the hell they used. They could tap into that. It's basically Tesla's free energy. It's powered out of that. So Odo's saying, I knew it was you. You're the one bringing the UAP. I don't know. Probably not, because it would be out near where I am. But there are things there's things I'm not going to talk about until I'm just not going to talk about. I've spilled too many of the beans just hinting at it in the past. I'm not going to talk about it, except, it's one of those things where I've sort of, see, if I say this, it says too much. There's a reason why I'm suddenly all about this shit. And I'll just let you guys guess why. Because if you tuned in 2 or 3 years ago, I'd say, yeah, aliens are real, but they're not here. I was in denial because that belief system, that model, that cosmology was part of my old childhood, the shit that I debunked, the shit that I decided not to believe, and I went into denial to heal myself. It's a known psychological thing. When you can't heal because it's hitting you too hard all the time, you put it in the box. You ignore it. You deny it. You pretend it's not real. That's a way to, it's not a good thing to do. It's bottling it if it's a trauma. But sometimes that's how you process things. You just go, you know what? I don't have space for that. I don't believe it. And I was in denial. But I'm not now. Oh, it's way deeper than just ET, Twilight. This is the thing. Our word ET is insufficient. Because your word ET is still based and rooted in that phenomenal materialism that we've been brought up in. ETs are only one phenomenon that we would say is interconnected, interrelated, and part of a bigger tapestry of phenomena. Alien beings living on another planet, that's biological manifestation. So it's in the hologram. It's a holographic, it's a materialistic side of the hologram. But there are beings for which there is no physicality. They are just mental. They can appear, they can manifest, but they don't have a physical form that they are attached to. They don't have an appearance that they're attached to. Think of it like this. Your ultimate self is no different. Your ultimate self is not physical. It's not even an idea. It is that from which all ideas come. It is that which appears as all ideas, and it is that which experiences all ideas. What I do think is that humans practice late stage cargo cult bullshit, and we confuse our mythology, which is symbolic, for literal things, literal objective realities. Twilight's asking about Lucifer. Take the word Lucifer out. What do you have left with? Do you think is? Take the word Lucifer away. What is the essence of Lucifer? That exists. But the caricature, the persona of Lucifer, does that exist? And if it does, in what form? Does it exist in this dimension? Does it exist in this cosmos, in this particular paradigm or timeline of material existence, of 3D holographic experience? Does that exist? Is there a fallen angel or an archon or an aeon? Or obviously it's an aeon in the Gnostic view, but I'm talking through all the different traditions. So what is the essence of Lucifer? Does that exist in the spiritual? Absolutely. It's an archetype. It's archetypal. It's an aeon. Aeons are archetypes and right, blah, 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 blah. That's what they're parts of the causal realm. So you have source, Brahman, whatever. Then you have the causal realm. You have mind, energy, body. Right? Like all these different facades. Causal is pure mentation, not mental imagery, mentation. It is the operative part of the mind. It is the mind before the symbols form. It's the mind that's not creating or finding images. It is the mind that reasons, and that's absolutely non-physical, non-local, has no substance, no form, no shape, no picture, nothing. The pure essence of intellect, the pure essence of the causal body is pure intellect. It is pure. It is not calculator reason. It is intuitive reason. It is fluid, spontaneous knowing and realization. And it is guiding. It is a will. The will is a part of that causal side. The will is part of the causal part, which is just one of the, again, language breaks down because layers makes it sound like separate things. They're not separate, but it's one of the layers. The causal form, the causal body, the causal reality. So Lucifer is an archetype in the causal realm. And Lucifer, what we call Lucifer, represents that archetype, and there is a countless number of expressions of it. You could argue that I'm one of them. You could argue that Twilight Son of Lilith might be. You could argue that he is one. And some of anybody that exemplifies to some degree, some great degree, the principles which define, or shall we say, are defined by the archetype. You see, the archetype defines the definition, not the other way around. That's what, at the causal level, we're not talking about things you're cookie cuttering out of experience. We're talking about the thing that is the source of those cookie cutter pieces. So the essence of Lucifer exists, but it is non-personal. It's not a personal being yet. It is an impersonal will, an impersonal intellect, an impersonal causal essence that is self-aware, but it is non-personal. It doesn't say, I've got blonde hair and blue eyes and I worked at Starbucks. It's not a fallen angel that pissed off God. It's not an emanation of the source that's looking at our world and going, oh, I have to. No. It's more alien than that. It doesn't mentate the way you think you do. It's more fundamental mentation. It is something, I don't want to say it's plant intelligence or something, but it's like that. It is something you can't really relate to without putting a facade in front of it that looks like some fallen angel or some perfect being of light or whatever your version of Lucifer looks like to you. That's your creation. You're creating that's well, some people would say it's a seraphim, right? It's not an archangel, it's a seraph maybe, or something like that. So there's an egregore that humanity has discovered or made and applied to that archetype. And that archetype manifests in infinite dimensions, but is always recognizable within the context of those dimensions, and theoretically across dimensions, so long as you recognize what those realities' symbols were, you could figure, oh yeah, that's a Luciferian archetype. And there's, of course, manifestation of those archetypes can be compounded. So Jesus, especially the Gnostic form, is obviously a Luciferian archetype, as is the Buddha. The Buddha is a title. So we're actually talking about Gautama. The Buddha is Lucifer. The Buddha is maybe not Jesus, maybe not Yeshua, but not even the Messiah, but the good news itself, that you are the divine. It is an intelligence that tries to awaken in all of us the realization that leads us to Sophia wisdom. Lucifer guides you to Sophia, because Lucifer was supposed to be with Sophia. In the mythology, Sophia was supposed to emanate with Lucifer, at least that the version I like. They were supposed to come together and create another, whatever, the material world, but in a more perfect form, a balanced form, a good form. Instead, Sophia tried to do it alone, for whatever reason. There's different theories about that too. Without Lucifer, her counterpart, so it's an imbalanced creation, an imbalanced emanation. Dwelling in darkness, in other words, Yaldabaoth, the demiurge, was never ego. Let's just call it ego, or Saturn. Let's call it ego, though. Yaldabaoth, or supreme ego, supreme externalized ego. That entity emerged in darkness without Lucifer. Notice Lucifer is the light bringer. It's the light. It is the illuminator. It is the revealer. It is the, did you know, Without that there to whisper in Yaldabaoth's ear, hey, you're not God. You're just an emanation of one of several layers down from God. And that's not God. That's the source. It's beyond God. God's nothing compared to that. Any religion's idea of God is a feeble, pathetic loser compared to the divine that is described in mysticism. This is why I feel bad for my Christian friends. They worship a very inferior being. If they knew what they could have access to, they wouldn't go anywhere near that personified dickhead with a fucking beard. Not that he's really that bad necessarily. It depends on which version you believe in. The Saturnian asshole that tells them to burn the crops and kill and rape their families and shit. Yeah, you go with that Old Testament God if you want. The Old Testament God makes for some good fantasy stories, though. If you just change the terminology, it makes for some good shit. The evil God that rules this world has demanded his chosen people conquer this planet. It's like, it'd be some cool fucking dystopian fucking fantasy. Yeah. All right, guys. I went on longer than I meant to be. No, Odo, my new book is not being released soon because of everything that happened. I am off the writing wagon for a little bit. I'm writing to keep up practice, but I'm not. I will say this much, and I'm going to end on this. I went through my old writings, and I was amazed because I've been telling you guys for years, I got like 100 million billion words written that are never going to be published, right? And I was going through one of my books that actually has like 70,000 words done. I'm like, you know what? This might actually be a good book to release after all. It would be like my memoir book. It would be kind of like everything I experienced over the years turned into like almost anthology story based on truth, like nothing's a lie. I might dress it up to make it a good story. The wind was fetid when he opened the, you know, I'd make it sound cool, but it would be based on exactly what happened. So just like I do with my my demon review videos and stuff, which will eventually be put back up. I just have them on hold because I got to figure out how I want to release them again. But I was thinking about releasing this book. I might do it. I might do that as just kind of like a, hey, you guys might like reading this. It's not about, you know, it wouldn't be like, oh, this is a book teaching you how to do magic. It would be, this is how I did things, and this is what happened as a result, and this is what I learned. And it's almost it's almost an autobiography, but it's not meant to be like about me. It's meant to be like memoirs. It's meant to be like, it's meant to take my journals that I had, like my shorthand, and then turn that into something worth reading. So if that sounds interesting, that may happen. It won't be like a, oh, this is how you do it book. It'll be, well, you might get some insights on how to do it based on what I write, because I will be just explaining my process, but it won't be like, you know, get 3 crystals of this type and turn around 15 times. And, you know, the elements of ritual will, it's not an instruction book. It's more like a, this is what I did, and maybe you can emulate it. That might be what I release next. The problem is that this next year or two, really, honestly, from now until like the early 2030s, a lot of psychics are saying like the 2032, 2033. I concur with that. That's a pretty fair, at the moment, I can concur with that. That's what it feels like. It feels like from anywhere between now and like 2032, 3, 4, we're going to be going through this real awakening period. And then after that, we're going to start building on what we awoke to. So the next minimum 5 to 10 years, but 5 to 7 probably, are going to be some of the most chaotic periods of change and exposure and awakening that humanity's had in recorded history that we know of. Because I'm sure they have recordings of history we don't know of. Literally recordings of history they probably can look back in time. Anyway, let's pretend that the next 5 to 10 years are going to be like that. Once that's over, then we'll be integrating and implementing everything we figure out from that period. And here's the thing. We are in the middle of a temporal nexus point. That is to say, there's a convergence. No one did this. Everyone say CERN's bringing all these timelines together. Now you can say CERN's opening portals, maybe. I'm not saying yes or no to that. I kind of think it's far-fetched, but I could also see how it could be, because if you understand how important oscillating substances are to both electrographic travel and interdimensional shit, if you understood like why the saucers spin the way they do, you could understand why maybe a particle accelerator could have some effect besides just cracking atoms together. Maybe it does do something. Okay, but let's pretend it doesn't. Let's just, irrelevant. The period of time that we're in right now, and I'm not quite sure when it began or when it ends exactly, but think of it like a funnel. Think of time like a torus or an hourglass, and all of these disparate timelines that are resonant with each other but different are converging into one. Everybody is coexisting across several different dimensions of possibility. We all see the world in our own unique way. All of those ways of seeing are true for us, but we're standing next to each other, not realizing that we're not all seeing the same world. The reality that I see is not the same one you see anymore. Like, we're no longer necessarily, some of us come from other temporal dimensions. I'm telling you, not physically, conscious. You're conscious. The consciousness that you are was watching one dimension of temporality, and now it's watching another. That's how you shifted. You went from reading this book to reading this book, is a metaphor. And that shift in what you're witnessing doesn't mean your body went from one universe to another. It means consciousness, your perception, your perspective shifted into that temporal timeline. And there is a convergence of temporal timelines that if you were on any one of these, any number of them, that could be where the Mandela effect comes from, boys and girls, including the fact that we can check for it now in some cases, because the Shaq movie, Fruit of the Loom, I think somebody found a pair of underwear. It gets to the point where people think that, oh, here they go. It gets to the point where people think that they might be faking the Mandela effect just to fuck with us. Maybe. Possibly. Or we're in a literal temporal nexus point. We're in a period of time of the temporal dimensions that convert, that a lot of different timelines converge to. Not all. If every timeline converged here, it would be utter madness. But several different timelines are converged here. And everybody who's here is like you're going through the eye of a needle and you've got a choice. This is where we're nearing the end of this, by the way. The strongest period of this was 6 months to a year ago. That's when I made my biggest jump in my entire life. I went from a reality that was looking real bad. I was losing faith in my own abilities. Magic seemed like maybe I was just fooling myself again. Like I was. It wasn't just that I fell out. It's like I found myself in a reality that wasn't right for me. So I shifted into one that was. And the way I did that can't be emulated because there's no technique to cause it. There's rather ways to open the door for yourself. You got to go through it. And there's no right or wrong way. Everybody's different. For some people, it's ritual. For some people, it's affirmation. For some people, it's putting shit in jars. I mean, it's different for everybody. And for some people, it's just literally just going out and doing the work. That's also magic. But even now, you still have a little bit of choice left. The off ramps, you're running out of off ramps, right? We're running out of runway. So you're going to stop being able to make choices soon. And these new timelines that are branching out from this will start branching in their own ways. But for a little while, they're going to be fixed. So we're in a fixed time tunnel. Let's put it like that. We're in a fixed time tunnel. And when we get to the end of it, we're all going to go our separate ways. The Christians are probably going to get their rapture and all that shit. The New World Order people are going to get, well, they already went another off ramp. The ones that wanted dystopic, genocide control, they left if that timeline was even possible. It may be that timeline was impossible, like some people suggest, that the hidden hand realized we can't change the future, so we just gotta whatever go with it. We tried, but we can't change it. Maybe. Or it may be that they realize they can't change it for everybody, just for themselves. And so they set up a lot of this and they took their off-ramp. Maybe. That's just how I see it. I'm not saying that's how it is. It's just what I perceive. Because I'm seeing people coming and going consciously. I'm seeing people completely change their paradigm of perspective. I'm seeing people go from magic, spirituality, and the New World Order are not real to, hey, Dan, could you? I mean, don't overwhelm me, but what do you think's going on again? So we'll see. Okay. There's nothing unusual about galaxies colliding, Odo. Yep, you're correct. There are several. The Magellanic Clouds are part of a collision process that's been going on for a while. Andromeda is coming in what? A couple million years? I forget how many millions. A couple 100 million years, something like that. So, yep. All right, guys, that is definitely it. I definitely went long. I want to thank all of you guys for joining me tonight. And make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this video, both on Rumble and YouTube. Rumble and YouTube, because Rumble will probably be my future going forward. I will still use YouTube until I can't. Like, it's not like I'm just going to leave, but I'm going to pour more and more energy into Rumble once I get back to doing this professionally, or at least as a hobby, like a serious hobby, not just something I do on Thursdays. Once I decide to just dive back into content creation, I'm probably going to focus on Rumble. I will still release everything to both platforms, but it will be made for Rumble, and YouTube will be more of the afterthought. I'll engage on both, but I will be promoting the Rumble version before the other ones. I might even release things on Rumble a little ahead of time compared to YouTube. So the reason being, especially now that Rumble has this new feature, I love this. This is what YouTube used to do. YouTube used to give you a studio to work in, and then they just got rid of it. And this studio that Rumble has is way better than what YouTube had, because the YouTube version was clunky. This is better than my streaming software. I can do more with this, at least to what I need it to do. I mean, I can't do the special effects, but I mean, I can set up the stream. It's very easy. It's intuitive. It's just, would you like to stream? I don't have to do all the bit rates and everything. Just literally stream now. Okay. That's all I wanted. That's all I needed. I don't need all the fancy shit because I'm not putting a TV show on. All right. I keep talking, guys. Why do I do that? All right. I will see you guys hopefully next week. And if you guys want, you can reach me on Discord. That's the best way to get a hold of me these days. I don't really focus on other social media except to study what's going on in the world and occasionally make posts on Facebook and troll people on Twitter because that's just fun. But Discord is where I live. That is my home on the internet. If you want to contact me or ask me questions or engage with other people in the community, because there are a lot of cool people there, and I'm hiccuping like a motherfucker tonight. So if you'd like to join us there. All right, guys. Have a good one. Where'd it go? How do we do it? What do we do? Bye.